Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Phil's Recap and Review. This is going to be for Westworld, Season 3, Episode 8, the season finale, Crisis Theory. And I don't have anything interesting to say at the beginning. You know, as I mentioned before, I like to do a little witty repertoire at the end. You know, a crisis theory. You want to hear a crisis? Me having to talk about Westworld for the first time this year. You know, something like that, but... Or do something along the lines of it all ended up being Ford's... A drop in Ford's eye, but no, everybody. The season of Westworld has finished, and I'm gonna catch up. I had talked previously about both seasons of Westworld. You can find those reviews on the channel. This season, just because of a lot of stuff going on, it was difficult to get out here each week, but I'm glad to be out here tonight to talk about this episode. Interesting episode of Westworld on an interesting season. I know it's been a polarizing season. Some people are really feeling it. Some people are asking where their westernly lands are. But I thought this was a good follow-up to this season. I mean, we can get into the nitpickiness of what was good, what was bad in this particular season of Westworld. There's a lot where you can dig in good and bad. Like, I think every season of Westworld. I think Westworld is a interesting show. Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, they set out on a quest, the voyage of the Mimis, so to speak, to tell their story, a story I think to entertain themselves as much as anybody else. And I think if we can judge each season individually amongst itself on how good it was at doing what it set up to do, I think in some ways this season was really kind of clean around the edges. It wasn't irregular around the margins. It was very kind of you can see every point that they took it. Whether I like every choice that they made, whether I like every piece of dialogue that is written on this show, is neither here nor there. I can dig into that, and we will have some fun with that tonight. And please, if you're listening to this later or right away, throw in your comments in the comment section. Tell me what you thought of this season of Westworld, or what you think of Westworld in general. And also, I won't be alone tonight. Joe Dirty Locks might not be on this show, and I might be babbling by myself in a room by myself. But I'm never alone when I have with me the live motherfucking chat. And right now we got Jay and Kristen in the live chat with some other people popping in and out throughout the evening, as I know there's a lot of fun activities after this episode of Westworld with a lot of people talking about this season. And there's been a lot of people digging apart this season and good stuff. But what I like about this particular episode is it generally tied up all the loose ends that they were setting up. I mean, we did get introduced to something else in the post-credit scene. If you didn't stick around to see the post-credit scene, there was a Man in Black post-credit scene. We'll get into that in a second of everything that happens there. But in case you missed that in the first watch, you can go back and watch that after all the credits. They put it in there, which was interesting that they chose to put it after the credits. I know that's where they've done that before. That's where they put their fast forward or their preview for the next season, their hints in there of what it's going to be about. And there was a lot there, but it was interesting though. Sometimes those after credit scenes feel like after credit scenes. This felt like the episode just picked up again and started to go on. And I kind of like the stuff that we got in that flash forward, or not in that post credit scene, not flash forward. What am I watching? Too much Lost? But everybody, so as I was basically saying, I do think that this season of Westworld it completed itself well. I think Westworld can be somewhat convoluted at times. And I think the interesting thing about this season and the choices that they made is I feel like it isn't as convoluted as seasons past. I think basically everything was a little bit, okay, there's a poker thing where, the guy knows the hands you hold. And I think in this season of Westworld, it's almost, they chose the most simple route for each story. They wanted to do, and when you got into the after the credit scene, when the show creators were talking about what they were setting out to do this season, I think they were just trying to set up a simple parallel between the humans and the robots. 0000001. To set up that kind of parallel on how the situation that the humans in this time period are dealing with is not dissimilar to what the hosts dealt with in season 1. And I think that whole thing was pretty just on the nose, elephant in the roomie, whatever, however you want to say it, throughout the season. I think there are some questions, there are some moments where you can dig it into it, but when it comes down to it, all the hosts that we saw in the outside world, except for the two of them that were with Maeve, were different Dolores. We got another Dolores tonight, but as in like deeper mysteries and all that sort of stuff, everything generally got answered, and some of it has some comparison to Picard and more Minority Report or some other shit like that. So instead of at times where I think Westworld's been really kind of breaking ground in the first two seasons, in this season, in my impression, they kind of went to some things that have been done before. And I'm joking about the Picard thing. They came out at the same time. But it's interesting. There are some parallels you could break down with Picard and Westworld if you want. But I do think there was something about keep it simple, stupid in a sense this season. People can be like, simple. But I felt like in a way it was... There were moments where they fuck with your mind still in individual plot threads, but basically the story is generally pretty simple. And maybe some of the ta-da, look at my magic trick stuff that they did at the end of this season didn't feel like big reveals. It had a lot to do with how Caleb was interpreting and the connection with Caleb and Dolores. And the fact that all in all, she ended up meeting him because the government were using Delos androids, Delos hosts, as to set up scenarios so they could X-Men the danger room scenario shit. And then when one of the soldiers in Caleb's group wanted to go all Sean Penn and Casualties of War on a couple of hosts, he went all Michael J. Fox and was like, fuck no, dude. We're not like those rich assholes. We're not going to fuck with these girls. And because of that, Dolores took note. And through the trip of, yeah, bitches, Aaron Paul, Caleb's whole journey, he needed to figure out that he's a good person, and that's where we get into some of the cheesiness. There were a couple of scenes towards the end where, and I like this, I'm gonna get nitpicky at times, but I feel like some of the dialogue in the end where it's about humanity being together. I love humanity, or just whatever. I forget what the dialogue is, and I have some good audio. We're gonna listen back to parts of this episode, but so I think it was both good and indicative of what Westworld is, at times cheesy and poetic, and has a sense of whimsy to it all. And I think trying to pull some wool, pull the magic cape away and go ta-da, and I think in this season there was a little less of that, and it was more just kind of a story that they wanted to tell to get to this point where we're going to have this new world order situation coming up in this next season and setting up maybe a war between Charlotte Hale, Dolores, the Men in Black robot now. So which is very losty at times too, but here we go. I'm the Westworld apologist, but holy for Zolies, was that a dodo episode, says Blue Steel. Watching now, I'm going to step back in when I'm done. I wouldn't go as far to say it was dodo, because I think some of the action scenes, sans the fight scenes, were good. Some of the fight scenes were, I'm not going to say they were choreographed bad or lazily, but there was one part where it just turns into a slap fight. But then, like, the next minute, someone's running up a wall and going all, like, Trinity or something. I thought visually the episode looked good. Hey, AK. And AK will be joining on a different Westworld stream, so if people want to pop over to there too, AK, by all means, share the link to your Westworld stream tonight that you're doing with the crew, so people can go over and check that out when you guys start as well. So yes, definitely feel free to share that link in the chat, AK. So I'm not going to say, because I didn't dislike this episode. In general, I did enjoy this season. I think it was the good capper to the story that they generally set up. But it was very paint by numbers at times for action stuff, action sci-fi stuff, in a way that, say what you want about last season of Westworld, where it was a little bit manatees pulling shit out of a bucket and throwing it up against a wall. But I think it had a little bit more of a uniqueness to it. But I think for me this season at times, and this isn't a weakness to it, and I'm not going to be, it wasn't Westworld. It was Westworld. It felt like Westworld. It just felt like it was at times more obvious. And I'm guessing that was by choice, because They wanted to not always do the complex thing. In this season, they wanted to tell a particular story. They said in the scenes after the episode altogether, they said they always knew they wanted this season to end on that riot. So I think they worked in reverse and set up the series of events to get to that scene with Maeve and Caleb sitting there with Pink Floyd playing in the background. I think it was all about getting to that point in some ways. And I think this season had some serious hits and some misses. And I think the misses were bigger than other seasons of Westworld for me in general. But the hits were really good. I think the moments in this season, and I'm talking tonight about, because I haven't had a chance to talk about the whole season, so I'll be talking about the season as a whole as much as this episode. But I think the highlight moments of the season, there were certain episodes, but the scene with William, and I think everything William was really great this season. I think Ed Harris continues to be one of the best actors. And I think the acting in general on this show is the saving grace of it. And I'm not going to say that everything else is crap, blah, 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 but the acting on the show is really great. And even when the actors need to deliver some cheesy dialogue, and Maeve definitely has to deal with this at times, and Dolores has had to deal with this, Evan Rachel Wood has had to deal with this since the beginning. And some of it is on purpose because of scripts in Westworld, but they deliver it so well and they stay in such character. The actor that plays Bernard is so perfect in this role, and seeing all those little touches and side notes to him. But Ed Harris, I think for me, in a season that was so much about a battle between Dolores and Maeve at times, I think Ed Harris's character stole the show at times for me. He was just so effective in those moments. And in that scene with all of the versions of himself in the therapy session, I actually referred to that in 2 sessions of real therapy. I was like, I'd love to do that to myself. I'd love to beat the shit out of me from 2 weeks ago even. You ever get that situation you just want to kill? And then we have, of course, himself killing himself. And then I also like the big surprise this season was that the machine was really running things, that our bad guy, I say, Sarek or whatever his name is, Serac, was actually just a puppet for the machine itself that is kind of dictating the way things go, which sets up the eventual situation for Caleb to take control over it, because by zapping Dolores' memories, it allows her to bond with him for a second, bond with the machine for a second, and connect in that moment where she says in a couple of episodes ago that she has a parallel or comparison to the more insane one, the brother's machine. And that is the last trigger to go in. I mean, there was some cool cloak and daggery, spacey stuff going on through that as well, too. But, okay, let's go in the live chat. OTDA, I loved it. Thought it was a great final. Cheers, Phil. And thank you, AK, for sharing that in. I would best summarize it as a school lunch, not a 5-star meal like season 1, not a golden coral buffet mess like season 2, just a meatloaf and cornbread, serviceable. I thought it was great. Thought it was a great setup for Caleb going forward. Jeffrey Wright is amazing. What's good? Here we go. So, and I think even if you can get nitpicky about the show, it's hard to get nitpicky about the acting performance and obviously some of the textural elements of the show. The show looks great. They definitely took the time that they took, all the extra time to really make this look great. I think some of the fight choreography is suspect, but I'll say some of the fight choreography in Christopher Nolan movies is suspect. So perhaps it's indicative of the family. As much as I love the Batman movies, and I know Christopher Nolan is not directing, I understand it's Jonathan Nolan, but there is some pedigree of the family carried through, and I think you could argue that the weakest part of the Nolan trilogy of Batman movies is some of the fight scenes, especially in the first movie. I think it's better as it progresses through. So I don't know if necessarily all the time, and I know some of it's cool and some of it's fine, but there were moments in this episode particularly where I giggled more at the fighting than I think they wanted me to. But maybe not. Maybe they wanted me to have a good tongue-in-cheek aspect of it. And I thought some of the dialogue Maeve had was very funny, and her being very animated in this episode and almost at times breaking the wall and talking to us about, I'm bored here, I can't deal with this shit anymore. Shit like that I think is very effective, and I think breaks down the conventions of the show pretty well as well. Did this final leave you A, shook, B, that it's not necessarily to When Rory, great to see you, Rory. Thank you so much for the tweet this afternoon. It's great to see you in the live motherfucking chat. It's been a while. Because my lazy ass hasn't been covering this show this season. So to answer your question, it always comes down to, that guy's got to feel really bad in family pictures. I mean, he is a good-looking guy, better looking than me. He's in Hollywood. I'll give full credit to Luke Helmsworth. I believe that's the Helmsworth. But you got your two brothers there. Come on, dude. You're. C, both A and B. I think C is the correct answer. Really, I wish Badger and Skinny Pete were hosts. I just want Corey Mitchell. I'm a simpleton. I have simple tastes, simple needs. All I wanted was one yeah bitch. That's all I wanted. I wanted to sip my apple juice box while watching the season finale and get one yeah bitch. But no, they can't even give it to me. There was a moment when they could have done it this season. I think I mentioned this in one of my walkie-talkie streams there. There was a moment this season where they could have done a yeah bitch. And it's when he fires the rocket launcher, the heat rocket launcher thing, and he's like, it missed, your weapon missed. And then it comes back and he could have said heat seeking bitch or something, there could have been something there, but I'm just a simple man. Or when he opens up the service locker in the warehouse and he sees the container and you see the Ark of the Covenant there, or you're expecting Huel lying on top of Heisenberg's money. So I was thinking about all that stuff too. So I'm mixed. As usual, I'm going to walk that fucking fence. I think this ending is one of those episodes where if you want to pick it apart, you probably could. If you're going to want to like it and drink the Kool-Aid of it, you can do that too. I think it did a really good job at several things. The acting, obviously, I kind of want to get that out of the way. I think the acting and the performing in this episode and in this season in general has been amazing. I think the shocking aspect, especially at the end, I think the post-credit scene was amazing, and I thought that how the whole season kind of topped off right there was really well done. But I do think some of the choices in some of the action, the way that the Dolores Maeve storyline ended up, and the way that we needed to get the keys to Caleb, so to speak, through Dolores' death, makes a lot of the season's build up a little less than just the ending. Or it goes by what I was saying. It's a little bit, I'm not going to say predictable, because a little influenced by other things. I can see a lot of other influences mixed in there, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just a thing. And it was a choice for the season. And again, I really like this season. I hope I don't have to wait 2 more years for another season of Westworld, because it would be really awesome to kind of get more episodes now and finish this storyline. The 8 episodes I thought were kind of scaled down. Do I feel like they could have used 1 or 2 more episodes? Because honestly, I feel like the end of this season was a good lead up to, I'm really excited to see, I'm more excited to see the things that are moving forward in this story than I was to see anything that we saw at the beginning of this season, or this whole season, which again to me I could say this whole 8 episodes in some ways felt like a beginning of a season, felt like the first part of a new story. And that's, again, not to say I did not like the new story or I'm not interested in it. I am. I can't wait to see where Caleb goes from here, and where the Man in Black story goes from here, and Charlotte Hales, and how it all comes together. But I do feel like a lot of the stuff that happened this season is getting me excited for what's to come, and now I'm going to have to wait. Bernard wakes up 20 years in the future with all that rubble and dust all over his face, turns to Stubbs in the bathtub and says, "Oh shit, my bad," before going to finally patch him up. I like that. I like it. So I am excited to see where the next season of Westworld goes, and I hope we don't have to wait a crazy amount of time. But with everything going on and how long Westworld takes anyways, I think we might be in for a big stretch. So I don't know. I have a couple comments about this episode that I don't know if it's going to sound like I'm bagging on it when I don't mean that. When I keep saying the things about it seems standard to me at times, or it seemed like They are influenced by other things. I'm trying to say it in a way to not be insulting about it. And what I'm going to say right now is it felt like a Heroes season finale. And I don't know if anyone's going to get what I mean by that, but at the end of the season of Heroes, everything, fits in place and every point is where it should be. And this thing needs to happen. Save the cheerleader, save the world. This needs to happen. And Hero needs to go out here to be right here to stab Siler and Zare and put zippity doo dah zippity yay. And I feel like in a way this season, the way it all tied up like that, and felt very neat. And again, that was surprising. And the shock that I felt in it felt a lot that I was like, oh my God, they did that. Okay. And yes, and then we had that moment with Dolores and Maeve. So let me not waste any more time here. Not waste any more time in my babblery, and let me can you play me some music here, asshole? Just play me the effing frickin' music. Recap. Okay, enough of that. So let's get into this recap of this episode, and maybe I just want to get through this episode so I can talk about the real topic tonight. Spending some good hard-earned discussion about Sam Lloyd and how much I loved Scrubs and loved his performance on Scrubs. So, hey, DJ11. Great to see DJ11 in the live motherfucking chat. It has been a while, my friend. So, let's get into this episode. Now, what I do love, one little small textural thing that Westworld's doing this season that I really love. JC Wild, I'm back. I'm here, Phil, and I'm high as a kite. First time since the awful Iron Throat ending. JC Wilder, great to see you in the live motherfucking chat. Great to see all you guys. Thank you so much for popping on in here tonight. I know there's a lot of fun discussions going on after these episodes, so I appreciate anyone popping on in here to say hi or popping on in here at any time later. So here we go. So this episode starts off, and like I was saying, what I really like about one little stupid thing that they're doing, and it's just one of those things like when I'm getting ready to watch the episode, and they do the previews or scenes from last time where they kind of show you everything that will be relevant or they think is relevant for you for this episode. It isn't necessarily what happened last week. It can be what happened in the second episode of Westworld. I like how it's no sound, basically, and it's just like I might even have the audio here of it. There's something about it I just stupidly like. Let's see if we can listen to this. It's real. I love the use of crescendo that they do in these things. We all have in a little bit, guys. So it's so cheesy, but I really dig the way they do that, dude. No, but I do. It's a small little thing, but I very much enjoy that. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that sound. I think I drank the water a little too close to the microphone, and we created a ripple audio effect there, so I apologize for that. But cheers to everyone with my juice box here. I drank too much vodka last night. Juice box. Yay! So it's great. It's great. I love podcasts about Westworld when you're hungover. It's great. Bring yourself back online, Phil. Must drink more apple juice. Okay, here I am, Philbot3000. Philbot3000 here to do your podcast needs. Let's get into this episode. No cold open. I'll stop that. Oh, no. No one wants to hear that voice. Okay, so the last time... Where we go? Okay, so no cold open, just opening right back in so we can get as much episode as possible. This is a weird show, and in general, a tough one to recap point for point. We're going to try here. We're going to listen to some stuff. I'm going to put on some technical difficulty signs, and we're going to have some fun here. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to relax, have some hippie activities, and we're going to have fun. Here it is. I know I still had this. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. Technical difficulties. Okay. So, Dolores... we get a flashback, and Is it Westworld in the past? Is it a quick glimpse of what we're to see coming up in the future? Let's see. Man, Game of Thrones, Westworld, Better Call Saul, all done, and Walking Dead to be charitable. What the hell does the world of geeks watch now? Love Island reruns? It's funny you say that, Blue Steel. I just binge watched 2 seasons of Australian Love Island. And I must say, the narrator of that show is fucking hilarious. I don't know the guy's name offhand, and I've seen 3 countries Love Islands now: the British version, the U.S. version, and the Australian version. And the Australian version's narrator is seriously extremely hilarious. So, anyways, enough fucking Love Island. Try OG cookies, Bob. Great strain, 50-50 indica sativa. Ooh, I like a good balance. I like a good indica sativa sandwich. This podcast is brought to you by Being Too Stoned. Being Too Stoned is your favorite activity in the quarantine. Yeah, it's better than drinking. It's better to do it every single day. This stutter is also brought to you by Getting Stoned. Okay, so let's continue here. So we open up and Dolores is in the Westworld past, and she's talking about her past. We see Bernard playing this stuff. Let's listen to some audio and try to catch up and see what the hell's going on. Play. Where are you, play? Audio, play. Damn it. There we go.
A disarray. I was taught to see the beauty.
Beauty. Finally, the audio doesn't sound like it's somebody underwater. In the Better Call Saul season finale, it sounded like it was underwater, and I don't even know why, but we fixed that, I guess, for now.
But I was taught a lie.
Oh, no.
And when I saw the world for what it really was, I realized how little beauty there was in it.
So one of the devices that I'm not sure I loved them doing this season or using, but I think was interesting because they spent 2 good... I don't know. I just completely talked myself out of not liking it into liking it there, but then not liking it again. Similar to the way this season has gone with the Dolores is a bad guy, Dolores is a good guy. But I like how they're playing with that. They're playing with our emotions in the sense that everything we've seen Dolores go through for 2 seasons, we could led to the belief that she really would necessarily want to wipe out humanity. So they use that as kind of a through line most of the season, and throwing off this weird balance where was Maeve on the right side of things. But I feel like they foreshadowed Maeve turning for so long. It's just a shame, like in a lot of situations, it needed to be the end of the character A for character B to realize that they were right all along and that there's a way out. And when you see how easily Maeve was able to destroy the device with her mind that had control over her for so long, it makes me kind of upset from a viewer standpoint that we couldn't get some resolution between Maeve and Dolores. I mean, I think structurally for the story, it makes sense to put up the jumping point to get Caleb and Maeve in that moment, in that place where they needed to be. But I hope this isn't the last we see of Evan Rachel Wood on the show. It's hard for me to believe that it will be, considering what kind of show we're dealing with here, but even still, that character, those memories, all of that setup, it seems like there could have been another way. But of course, like a movie or a television show like this, there is only one way for this to happen. Okay, so we continue here. So Dolores is in the Westworld past, and she's talking to the past. She's up, down, down, left, right, B, select, start. What the hell is this crazy Dolores doing?
I've lived many lives.
Many lives.
I traded one role for another.
New roles every day, motherfuckers.
But in the end, my path has led me here. To you. And we have a choice to make. I've died many times.
Yes, DJ, I'm drinking fucking apple juice. Yep, no lies. It's apple juice. I mean, whether I have it spiked with some, LSD or something, that's neither here nor there. And I have to say, I'm not a big fan of apple juice in general. I'm as much of a fan of apple juice as I am of reboots. I generally don't like it. I find it cloying. I find it too sweet, too simple within its gaze. But oh god, this I'm ejaculating apple juice all over the place here. This is a very very tight box here. If I squeeze it even a little bit, juice is squirting all over me. Sorry, I know that's a very disgusting thought for most people out there. Okay, so. Thank you to that one person that just texted me. It's not disgusting for me. Okay, so but something about this particular apple juice, and it's R.W. Knudson's organic apple juice, and I can't quite explain it, but I like this particular apple juice. I'm a picky juice appler. It always makes me feel better. It's we all have our cheesy hangover cures. Whenever I'm out for 50 years and I wake up with dust on my body, the first thing I go to is sugar. Sugar and fatty, chippy kind of foods are my go-to. And again, everyone has different things, but like today I made brownies because and I'm eating apple juice. I drank brownies and I'm eating apple juice. Yeah, I should totally be talking about this show tonight. But it's reboot juice. So that is how I feel about reboot and apple juice. Unless it's R.W. Knudson's or like 21 Jump Street or something, I'm not really a fan. 21 Jump Street is a pretty good one though. Anyways, so yeah, let's listen to more Dolores.
But there is only one real end. I will write this one myself.
Again, talking about things that just are fucking amazing and hard to refute. The music on Westworld, as much as Ramin Djawadi, or I'm gonna kill his fucking name. I kill his name every time. Maybe I could be a good enough person to actually learn how to pronounce arguably the best television music composer working, whatever. But he does a lot of really great work. I mentioned before that I believe he started off, and one of his first shows was Prison Break, Game of Thrones, a lot of other things that you just wouldn't even expect that you see his name on. In some ways, I think Westworld is the best work he's ever done. The music, the way it all orchestrates together, even at the end of this episode, the way that version of Brain Damage kicked into to melt into the Pink Floyd version, I thought was just an exceptionally well done audio edit, and just the way his theme, that haunting Westworld theme, it's a credit that in a time where I'm all about skipping intros, Westworld is a long fucking intro, and I try to listen to it every time just because I like it. So, if Maeve is Team Dolores Caleb, whose side is Clementine? Okay, that's a question I have, and people in the chat or comment section or calling on in or whatever can answer this question for me, or maybe I can figure this out over time. With Clementine in Armistice, especially with Clem, wasn't Clementine's brain wiped at some point in time? Are they just kind of Maeve versions of Dolores's, or just extensions of Maeve, or did Maeve find a way to give them back their minds, so to speak? I don't know if that was clearly defined, except we just saw them show up and kick some ass and then leave. I don't know. Is Clementine, but I would say Clementine is on whatever side Maeve is on, if we're to in that sense, but because Maeve was the only force that was keeping hosts on Sarak's side. I keep wanting to say Sarek and I might call him Sarek from now on just because of Star Trek and the name and Spock's father's name. I left my phone upstairs. So if anyone's trying to text me privately, dirty stuff, then I don't have my phone with me, and I'm sorry. So let's continue here. So we have a choice, died many times, blah, 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 blah. As we flash over to one of Sarek's thugs, who surveys the wreckage and sees Dolores' head open, bleeding, and Maeve there as well. And what we didn't see, or I can't remember if we saw it last week, Caleb grabbed Dolores' little ball to preserve her for the for what we eventually get a little bit, which is really cool to see one of the old style hosts and Dolores, where you're like, wait, why is Dolores an old style host? Is this going to come back up? And it comes together with the fight scene where she blocks her with the metal arms and stuff. I thought it was really cool. Okay, so then we see the men, and we cut back over. Then the hills are alive with the sound of music. Jesse Caleb Pinkman is riding his motorcycle around. Okay, I think Aaron Paul is a really good actor. I'm a fan of his, obviously from Breaking Bad, but I think the best other thing he's ever done is Todd from BoJack. Caleb is an interesting character in the sense that I'm compelled by him, but I don't know if I'd be compelled by him if I didn't have Jesse Pinkman baggage. I would love someone in the comment section or in the live motherfucking chat or later in one of the comments, or if you're listening to this podcast, if I'm able to do that, because I might play a copyright song later and not give a fuck about it and sending off somebody, rest in peace. But if you've never seen Breaking Bad and don't have a natural care for Jesse, I wonder if you view Caleb any differently, or if you have as much care about Caleb, because I see Jesse in him, and I don't know if that's a credit to him as an actor or a credit to everything Breaking Bad did to me, but I definitely feel that when I'm watching him, like a sense of care about him. And I don't know if I'd feel that if it was played by a different actor. And I mean, that is something to be said. Jack Nicholson has a similar way about him in a different sense, but in a way that through every character Jack plays, you feel Jack in there. It's a different emotion. I mean, Aaron Paul's Jesse emotion is more, fuck, dude, like looking at the world, like how the world's fucking me and how I managed to get through it. Whereas, it's like a different comparison, but I do feel like there is some element of that going through. So William is going Man in Black for Dolores, maybe, or he's going to go back, but then we have the Dolores, or we have a new Man in Black, which is a newly made host version, which is a Dolores disciple in a sense, but is the copy that became Charlotte Hale, which is not quite Dolores anymore because it has some amalgamation of Hale and Dolores combined there to create this other creature of sorts that probably copied herself and prided herself off the William one. So it's interesting. I got 4 seasons of Breaking Bad. I feel the same way. You see Pinkman and Caleb, but he still did a great job. J.C. Wilder, I think, and hey, Linda, great to see Linda in the live motherfucking chat in the Iron Throne as well. Good to see all you guys. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I appreciate you popping on over here and saying hello. But yeah, I think he did an excellent job, and he creates charisma on screen. But I feel like the moments where I felt most connected to him as a character is at times when I felt like he was Jesse. Even in this episode when he kind of like turns it around, he's like, "Oh, you don't think you can control me, Mr. White?" Like I almost felt like I wanted him to say that at a couple of points in time. He's like, "You can't control me, Mr. White. I have free will." But that's just my own baggage. And I mean that in a good way. I think sometimes we bring with us television baggage. Not all of it's bad television baggage, but some of it is good, and some of it, and I think TV, you deal with this more than in movies. I mentioned Jack Nicholson earlier. De Niro eventually became that. I think in movies, actors eventually become that because they play the same types of characters over and over again. But I think the condition is more conducive to television because of how much you watch it in your house and the episodic nature of it, because you feel like you really get to know people within these characters. And I think some people can break out the conventions of it, but some people create such iconic characters. And again, this is a me thing. It might be a you thing too, but I'm kind of just saying this is a me thing. They can create such iconic characters that I can never not see them as those people. And within all their other characters, I see that in them as well. It's very rare for a character to create something completely different. I mean, you got someone like Ricky Schroeder that did it. And speaking of which, to talk about Ricky Schroeder, you also have Alfonso Rivera, who kind of did it as well by playing. He wasn't the star of either show, but he did it with Silver Spoons and then with The Fresh Prince, where he kind of created 2 different iconic characters. I'm working on the eventual Golden Girls podcast. All the Golden Girls minus Estelle Getty did it kind of as well, especially B. Arthur was Maude and Dorothy. But it's not super common, but in a sense that you could argue that Maude and Dorothy are similar characters or whatever. But I think Jesse, Aaron Paul owns that role so much, owns the role of Jesse so much that it's hard not to see Jesse within him. I think and this doesn't take away from the performance. Again, it's a me thing, not a we thing, not a Westworld thing. But yeah, it's like I will never not see him as Jesse Pinkman until he gets really old looking, until he has a big visual change. But he looks very Jesse. His eye expressions, the way he's working. Todd, he can obviously be disguised behind all of that. And I think that's why that's Will Arnett's best role beside or equal to Job as well for different reasons. Wish they could have gone Daniel Day-Lewis to play him if I could choose anyone. It's the same with Daniel Radcliffe. He will always be Harry Potter, no matter how well he plays another role. Jesse Pinkman forever. Dorothy tells it like it is in Golden Girls. I like it. Can you see Ben? No. Ben Linus is another one. That's a good, and it's funny. I was thinking a lot about Ben Linus recently for some strange reason. But I think that character is another example, and I think more so than any other of the actors on Lost. Maybe him and Sawyer. I think some of the other actors like Jack, I can see that guy playing other characters, not necessarily see him as Jack John Locke. I've seen him in other things. So I don't necessarily view him as that. But I do think that that actor created a character like that, so Ben Linus, that it's so iconic. An example of someone I think that broke out of it in a weird, interesting way was because he was such a good actor in that would be the Fonz, Henry Winkler. Because Henry Winkler is such a neurotic, like, Woody Allen kind of guy when he's like being Henry Winkler, that the Fonz, you always see the Fonz in him, but he's so not the Fonz in everything else because he's so, oh my God, it's so out of control. I think he's able to create new identities and kind of work off that as a bouncing point to create comedy off the image of him as being cool in the past. I think Neil Patrick Harris does that very well on How I Met Your Mother, comparison off Doogie, because how innocent and pure Doogie Howser was, because he was, the 16-year-old doctor that was awesome character and always doing the right thing at the right time, having to help his buddy Vinny De Palma and his girlfriend Wanda through tough times. It was all about Doogie. And then, Barney Stinson is especially early on in How I Met Your Mother, is, the scummiest character on television. But he plays off of that in a fun way. And I think Aaron Paul does that in some roles, plays off of the Jesse thing. But I think in Westworld, in Caleb, he's embraced it and he's used it within his character, because his character does have some similarities or some similar arcs to that of Jesse. Completely different universe, different extremes, but in a sense being in use by somebody and then having a moment where he breaks free from it. A lot of Jesse's story arc through Breaking Bad could be thought of being in an abusive situation or being under control of somebody and bouncing from point to point. And that moment in Breaking Bad when he breaks free and he's throwing the gasoline everywhere and going to light Walter's house on fire, that's his escape, his way of breaking free on that. Then, of course, he goes to Hank, but he has a moment where he's like, fuck you, I'm not doing anything any of you guys want. This is my plan, my situation. I'm going to bring him down my way. And I think there's, again, though, that awakening within Aaron Paul exists in both shows, and I saw it a lot tonight. And the way the season got brought together, it just brought a lot of Jesse out of him. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing, for whatever that's worth. The Barney and the Andy Griffith Show guy. Yeah, I mean, he's a great example. There are some other actors that have done it by playing very similar characters on two different shows. Like the guy from Hill Street Blues and NYPD Blue, Stipowitz or whatever the fuck his name is, played basically a similar character on everything, and he played the same character in Die Hard 2. I mean, there's some people that kind of carry those characters through and have whole careers playing basically a same character with occasionally bits of different things. Okay, so let's get to the second scene of the episode.
I hate to say I told you so, Bernard.
Doesn't have to be like this. Together, we can stop Dolores. I know her. I know what she wants. She wants to burn all this to the ground. Time to atone for my sins.
Oh my goodness.
Remember yourself.
And Daniel Radcliffe is definitely one of those people as well. And at this point, Elijah Wood kind of as well, even though he has broken out of it a little bit in some fun performances. He'll always be that fucking Hobbit to me. So the Men in Black shoot Stubbs at gunpoint, and the Men in Black, some machines show up. Oh yeah, it turns into a slapping match. This is the slapping match fight. They get into this like little slap match, and Bernard proves he's the slap king in this moment. Then the coppers show up, and they get Bernard, and he disarms them, but plenty of fireworks, so he's not going to shoot at the cops. Bernard switches himself on in the scene when he's behind the car. That's what I forgot to say. I can't read my own fucking notes. He switches himself on, and he gives himself a just in case. It almost reminds me of when you're young and you take certain psychedelic drugs that fuck with your mind, you want to keep something that can always remind you of who you are. We used to call it a something else. Everyone has. They write a note to yourself that says you're sane or something. So he keeps something to remember himself. Remember, he says. And he goes into full-on robot mode, and he kills all humans, and he gets stopped. And we're visited by a voice of the past. Oh, that doesn't happen? Oh, and it's Lawrence. Yeah, it's the actor that plays Lawrence playing another Dolores, and we get a fun little scene between them.
Isn't it great to see an old friend?
You're one of her copies too.
I think Lawrence did the explosion. I think Lawrence was sent there to help in that moment. But I'm not positive about that. Aren't you a little bummed we didn't get a Lawrence Men in Black reunion? I am, but they both exist in this universe, so we're never going to get the real Man in Black and Lawrence, but we might get some interaction between the actors again. But I was a little bummed that we didn't get them to interact. And I love this actor, and I'm glad he got brought back.
I got something for you.
You already gave me something. Dolores. She hid something inside my mind. I can feel it. Whatever your plan is, I don't want to play a part in it.
And even everything with that Bernard has the key, not her, is kind of set up throughout this whole season. And I think it's very interesting the way they do that, and the way it's all set up that isn't really a big mystery at the end when Dolores doesn't have the key. K. Rich. Thank you, K. Rich, for the super chat donation. 7 great episodes setting up 3-episode finish condensed into one jumpy, unsatisfied finish. Hail Loris, all powerful with no explanation. Maeve, quick turn. Caleb stumbling, not leading. Sarek, And thank you so much for that super chat donation, K. Rich. I'm going to spin the fucking wheel for you right now. And I agree. I was going to say that earlier, that I feel like they could have fleshed out more if they had more seasons. I don't like the 8-episode seasons. If people are asking what is the flashback, or someone mentioned post-traumatic Game of Thrones stuff, it's not even necessarily about the way the show finished. It's about shows that should have 10-episode seasons being relegated down and down for less and less episodes. And I think for the most part they set up this season pretty well into this episode, but they had a lot of business to get done this episode, to the point where they ended the episode and then not a scene after the episode. They kept doing it because they had more story to tell. So it's a shame that even one more episode would have been good, but they couldn't have done 9. You know, you have to do it an even number. You couldn't do 9 episodes. You could have done 10. So I think maybe we should have had 10 episodes this season. There was a lot more they could have done to set up, even at the beginning of the season, with Dolores getting some of her clones. And I don't know, that you could have done more here. And K-Rich, thank you for the super chat donation. Oh, what do we get? You get a review commentary of your choice. So, K-Rich, please email me if you would like at 781. Email me at 781. Email me at igotissuesman@gmail.com if you have a request for something coming up soon. Now that I'm showless, if you have a request for an individual review or something, let me know, K-Rich. And again, thank you so much for the super chat donation. More important and needed than ever. I just go on YouTube and type I'm having a bad trip. We definitely needed, I think you needed 2 more episodes in the season. I think the Charlotte Hale, Dolores, all-powerful thing definitely requires more time. I think everything you had at the end of the episode with the Men in Black kind of got yada-yada'd a little bit and got done in a cool way, but I would have liked to see even more of that and a little bit more fallout leading up to that point. I feel like the episode even ended in a mid-thought. I was like, oh, it's over? Oh, it's over? It's over right here? I mean, it was cool with the song and everything. I was like, this is a good ending, but they're not ending here, right? So, yeah. Hale forgot that this was Westworld, not Star Wars, projecting into a world like a dead Jedi. Psst, psst, psst. I snorted, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's listen to more of Lawrence here. Just because I love him. And I want to do
You've already been playing the part. And the most important one.
I think the Maeve quick turn thing is the worst for me because I feel like I was mentioning this earlier and talking about it in a more roundabout way because sometimes I need to discuss this stuff to figure out how I actually feel about it. And I think the Maeve turn is the one that felt a little too easy and cliche in the sense that Dolores needs to die and connect with her mind and it felt like that turn could have been littered a little bit more transitionally or even in what we had if they showed Maeve start to view things in Dolores's perspective at each one of their encounters. It wouldn't have made each one of their encounters maybe a little repetitive and then have it be like, oh, okay, Maeve's turning right here at the last minute. It would have been interesting to see her, not be tempted necessarily, but in each encounter connecting a little bit and understanding her a little bit more and setting up that scene where she's going to get inside her mind and Vulcan mind meld with her. It felt like that scene came more out of, why don't you just get in my mind? And then they said it so that you knew it was going to happen later in the episode, similar to the EMP, not EMT. The EMT is what I'm going to need in a few minutes if my head keeps going like this. The EMP was set up early in the episode to where you know it's going to be used. They could have kind of set up that turn a little bit better, I believe. It's J.C. Wadler. The Curb episodes with Jason Alexander are some of my favorite stuff. I love watching him and Larry David argue. It's hilariously amazing for me. I love Curb. I'm already ready for a new season. I hope they do one more season. I've heard rumors that 10 was the last one, but we could really use another Larry David in the world right now. Mayhem leader exploded all the buildings at the end of Fight Club style. Hey, Adrian, great to see you. Maeve's story arc was straight up sad this season. It's just a shame that we finally see her in this episode show individuality. Again, that's just one of those little devices and stuff I kind of dislike when we see that Maeve could have ultimately destroyed that part that was controlling her at any point in time she wanted to, but instead needed to be when it made most sense in the story for most dramatic purposes.
I'm not the one you need to talk to.
What's this?
Something to help you on your journey. But you have to go see her.
So this is when one of the Doloreses gives Bernard the information to be able to go see his wife to have closure about his dead child when he was Arnold, when he had some Arnold stuff. So then we go off to unarguably a really cool camera thing with Jesse on the motorcycle. I don't know. I can't quite explain it. I'd have to watch it again, but it really looked cool. He's checking out the distillery or whatever this place goes. Jesse finds his entry point with his video game app and heads into the door, gets all the passcodes, blah, 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 blah. Opens up, and there's a white chest there filled with Heisenberg's cash. Ding. Oh, so right there, a box filled with the Ark of the Covenant. Ding. It's a bag, and it says property of Delos. It's an android body, a kind of version 1, the stronger, older model that's made out of steel. And he has Dolores' ball in his hand, and he puts it in, and we get a turn of the head, and we have another Dolores. And we get a cool scene between the two of them that I'm going to play while I...
Listen, you always seem to know exactly what I'll do.
Because the people who built me studied you, too. Delos. Park 5.
So this is where we get the completion of all of this. Park 5, one of the extra parks, which is War World, or a separate simulation world that Delos rents out to the military. I'm not quite sure. Maybe we'll get into that more next season, but we, through Caleb's storyline, and see more of that situation. But this is where we get a little bit more connection between the two of them. And yeah, I thought that little camera angle thing on the back of Jesse, and that's one of those little things that you see the experience that Jonathan Nolan has from working with his brother in all the movies. I know he did the writing, but just like having that pedigree and hiring the right people that shoot this thing beautifully. And I thought that was a very good shot thrown in there. Just all that stuff matters, especially in a show like Westworld. That's kind of, I think, trying to get all your senses off as much as your brain and figuring out what's going on. I think a lot of it, I've said this earlier and I'll say it again, I feel like when I'm watching this show, and I mean this as a compliment, that the show creators are making this for themselves, not for me or anybody. They're making it to entertain themselves. And I'm cool with that. And I might not always love everything and can pick it apart and be a little bitch about like, yeah, this is what I wanted, or this is what I thought was cheesy. But I think they sit back and they watch this and they go, yeah, this is what we wanted to do. And I think in this season, they probably feel that way. And you know, not every show feels that way. Some feel like they're trying to be edgy when they want to be edgy to do a season and have a character die and have their ghost haunt them all season. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Ray Donovan, season 5. Like, some shows want to be more clever than they are just to kind of try to do something. And they're doing it, I don't think, to entertain themselves. They're doing it to be judged properly by critics or get a certain response from the audience. I think, and this is my speculation, Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan make this show to get themselves off creatively. And they don't give a fuck. And I like it. You know, I like that attitude. And I think that attitude comes through in the show. And for good or for bad, that is the thing I probably like most about Westworld. The sort of, we don't give a fuck, we're making our show kind of attitude. Because they don't do it in like a fuck you way. They do it in a, like an inclusive, like we're doing our own thing. You want to join us? Join us. It's fun on this ride. Come on. But I think it's mainly fun for them. I don't know if that makes sense. Now, will there be a 4th season? Should I start playing Red Dead Redemption again? Now, both those things could be true, Rory. I think, yes, you should start playing Red Dead Redemption again. And yes, there will be a season 4. Absolutely confirmed. It has been confirmed by HBO, and Lisa Joy mentioned it in the after episode discussion that season 4 is a definite go. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I do think HBO likes that about them. And I've compared it to The Wire before, and I'll do it again. I don't think ratings matter. I think HBO likes that. And some people have argued with me or think that, you know, Westworld will be as popular as Game of Thrones or The Sopranos. I don't think it will ever be that for HBO, but it will be The Wire or Deadwood or one of those kind of series that has its audience, and its audience is loyal and loves it. And HBO keeps on because it creatively believes in it. And I think HBO creatively believes in Westworld more than it cares about the ratings and the reviews and all that sort of stuff. Excuse me. So I think it's an interesting situation. But to answer your question or your thing, and I see someone in the chat did already, season 4 is a go. Okay. So most unbelievable part of the episode, Caleb going 60 miles an hour on a motorcycle without eyewear and not squinting. Meth's a hell of a drug, Blue Steel. And Cameo. No, not Cameo. That's the website where you can get stars to record messages for you. Well, what was the name of his drug that he was doing? Genre. That's what it was. Looks like Assassin's Creed going full God of War. Now Assassin's Creed is remaking Vikings. Oh yeah, I saw that they're doing the Vikings things. Maeve's story was, let's go. Oh, we got DJ. I'm late in the chat. You're never too late, Adrian. You're here at the perfect time. DJ, yeah. Someone needs to shake her script writers awake. Bring yourself back online. You ruined Maeve this season. They wrote the season and decided that Caleb is a lot like Jesse Pinkman, so they got Aaron Paul. And I kind of agree with that as well. They need to build their HBO Max library. And I do think there's some element of that where I don't know if they realize what they can do sometimes to characters like that. Like, I feel like Maeve... They wanted Maeve versus Dolores this season. They wanted that. They didn't care that if the story organically made sense for Maeve's character or every decision she made sense. They wanted those fight scenes between Evan Rachel Wood and Thandie Newton because they're the two biggest stars in the show, and they wanted them like head to head fighting. And I think again, I feel like I could be 100% wrong. A lot of things worked in reverse this season. Instead of saying we want to do this certain thing, or we have something to tell, how can we visually make that happen? It turned that we want to have Maeve and Dolores fighting each other a lot, and we want to have this crowd, this riot of the real world with Aaron Paul, with a Jesse Pinkman-like character standing over it with Brain Damage Eclipse playing. And they kind of deconstructed it backwards from there. And I think some elements of that is, yeah, of course we wanted the two of them to fight. Why wouldn't we want them to fight? That'd be awesome. And so, like in all shows, you occasionally have to make people stupid, or make characters make decisions they wouldn't necessarily make, or nerf them, or Peter Petrelli them, for another Heroes reference, take away their powers, or take away all their reasoning, or put them in a bubble or box or whatever, and make them seem like they couldn't do anything about it to service the story. And I think you did that with Maeve, and you sacrificed some of her character, because I feel like this episode was the first episode, besides her whole Alone episode, but this episode served her character pretty well. But I feel like we could have seen this coming more, and more of her story was her trying to find ways out, or we find that she's actually working with Dolores this whole time. This was all part of the plan at the end here, that Dolores needed Maeve to getting close to Serac to get to the point where her brain would unlock to allow the merging of the machines. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching, but I feel like there could have been more connective tissues with the storyline to give Maeve some more meat, rather than I'm being blackmailed into being a bad guy, or being not a bad person, going against what my real decision would be, and then the last minute I have a death connection with the main opposing force that I understand their standpoint. Did someone say Martha? You know, like something like that you get at the end. Why are you saying Martha? Like a moment where they just connect on some level because of one piece of very influential dialogue that causes a complete transition in the mind scope of a character to go back to how they really should think. So yeah. So maybe that's one of my, if I'm making a list of things that I didn't love this season, I feel like Maeve's arc could have been more emotionally fleshed out and a little less zoom, 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 oh, zoom, zoom, zoom. I don't know. Wouldn't Reporm, and I'm pronouncing the name wrong, the bad robot, know where Caleb was at all times, and shutting down his helicopter ride, or denying him access, or no, it's the good one, I'm sorry, or denying him access to the building or anything. For your all-knowing and seeing system, it sure gave up easy. Unless that's what it wanted. It knew at the end the whole time it would be connecting with Jesse Pinkman, and that's what it really wanted. Is that what we were supposed to think at the end? That it always knew, or it needed to connect with Dolores in that moment? And I agree, for an all-powerful robot, we found at the beginning of this episode, for even knowing Caleb or being connected, or at least the other one was connected to Caleb in the reprogramming, they kind of undervalued what he could do and how he gets into the mix. They're like, oh, who's this? What's this guy? Oh, one of ours? Oh, my goodness. Like, they were surprised by him at the beginning of this episode. We'll get into this, but great points, Blue Steel. I want to see Dolores and Maeve fight too, wearing bikinis in a pool of jello, as DJ11. Rohoban wrote the season 3 script. What do you think of the post-credit scenes? Adrian, I thought the post-credit stuff was my favorite part of the episode. Mainly because I'm a sucker for anything Ed Harris on the show, and I thought that scene, the way it led into it, was very haunting and kind of whenever you have scenes like that where you're getting killed by yourself, it can be, for me, it's a very frightening sci-fi kind of visual that you can go through, and I thought it was done really well in that scene. Even the music balancing it off, and the way Hale was looking, watching it like she expected the whole thing. I thought that scene was probably the best in the episode. So let me continue here. So where are we? Oh yeah, Caleb.
Government wanted their soldiers trained with live targets. People who made me were happy to supply them. You met my kind before. were watching, cataloging your every move, every decision. There is a reason I chose you.
Am I the bad guy? Is that why you picked me?
Think, Caleb. How did you get here?
Remember, Quaid. Remember. Sorry, I'm typing something in. Gods. Okay. Sorry. I can't type and think at the same time. And I don't want to say what I was typing in because it's a secret for later. Let's continue.
Fuck that. We just liberated these girls. What is it those rich motherfuckers do when they're here? Spoils of war and all. No one's watching, right?
That's when we get our first flash of the casualties of war kind of scene. And, oh shit, who's that? Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm seeing some texts from before. My phone line's getting a little weird. I'm getting some texts from like 2 weeks ago. Okay, so we get a flashback of some dude being kind of rapey with some of the hosts, and Jesse Pinkman shuts that shit down, casualties of war style. And then she gets up and, okay, she gets her robot, puts on her hands, and she asks him what he wants. And they have a moment where they both question each other's motivation. And she says, don't question my motivation, I won't question yours, asshole. And let's get into it.
That's what I thought when I first came here. They were wrong. Free will does exist, Caleb. It's just fucking hard.
Now, I thought that was said really well right there, okay? We get that line right there. Free will's hard. Everyone has it. Free will's hard. Free will exists. It's just fucking hard. And I think that is a good line, a well-written, dialogue-driven, fun, cool way of saying that. Then they keep saying it throughout this episode in more flowery ways as the episode goes on. I think it's best said right there. And that's enough in some ways. Or I think that should have been the big buildup of some sort. I think that's a well-written line. Let's listen as we go on in the episode. It gets said again in different ways. So our next moment is we see William back in the office drinking whiskey, asking about his fucking cash.
You said you were dead.
They were wrong.
There's always one soldier in every
I don't
TV show and
understand.
movie that goes like
I
that.
heard you had some kind of a mental break. Now you're here drinking a $20,000 bottle of whiskey.
Ain't life grand? Where's my fucking money?
It's complicated. You're considerably more wealthy after the Delos buyout, but since you were declared deceased, your resources were frozen.
Thaw them out.
I'm dead. Serves me right. Okay. So the world looks like a nightmare.
I want my jet. And get me a list
The
of
king.
locations of
True
Delos
king.
assets worldwide.
Can't wait to talk about some Game of Thrones
What are
soon.
you planning to do?
I'm going to save the fucking world. That's what.
Save the fucking world. Save the cheerleaders. Save the fucking world. So the world looks like a nightmare, and we get to the next scene. Everything looks horrible, and then Dolores handles hostiles with ease. We get a scene with Dolores like spraying people with a machine gun, and Aaron Paul's face is just great. The system will get more aggressive as we get closer, like it's a video game, and they meet up with the group that's going to help them, and it's and they march on in. Let's go in the live motherfucking chat for a second. King, you're on Greyjoy, baby. And when did the hell did Dolores have time to be a prisoner of war trainee bystander doomed to soldier rape? Weren't we following her through all of season 1 and season 2, and it ended with her leaving? I mean, that could have happened at any time throughout history, but it has to happen in Caleb's lifetime too, which isn't too long, so it's not back in the original William days, so it's fairly recent. That's very true. Oh goodness me, Blue Steel. They're just adding, they're adding things in. Nancy, the lovely Nancy T in the live motherfucking chat. You can see we got my Nancy T blanket right over to the side of me. It serves as a couch cover, so I'm always cuddling up on it every day. Thank you so much for all the love and support Nancy T gives so many of us content creators out here. So lots of love to Miss Nancy T. No matter what, still better than the Game of Thrones ending. Okay, so so yes, they march on in. So Dolores Hale is there, and she is in hologram form, and she's healed, and she's talking shit, and she pops in there, and she's gonna be a stick in the mud of the whole situation. So
You're alive.
no, not a hologram. Not a hologram, because Aaron Paul in this situation says who you're talking to. So she finds some way of projecting herself into Dolores's mind. Correct, or am I wrong about that? No one else can see her, right? That is correct. You are correct, sir. Thank you.
I was so worried about you.
Were you? You made me go back in there. You knew I wouldn't make it.
Oh, thank you so much, Nancy T. Spin of the wheel for the lovely Miss Nancy T. Thank you so much for being so amazing, as always. Holy shit. Thank you, Nancy T. And what does Nancy T win? She wins. Everybody drink. So whatever you have, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, everyone pick up your drink and toast it to Miss Nancy T. Everyone say, toast, Nancy T. Oh, everyone, thank you. Oh, there she is on the screen. We get a little dancing Joe up there. Oh, my goodness, some balls in my cup. Have a good night, my friend. Talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for the love. Okay, so Dolores Hale's in there. She's sorry, and let's listen to some of this discussion.
Who are you talking to?
I still feel it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else. Yeah, because he goes, who the hell are you talking to? And she's pissed off. She's angry as Dolores, and she's going to fuck with her until the end here. And she has a sniper that has the higher ground and get some of Dolores' people killed. And she ends up outbidding herself.
Hey, rocks?
No. They're mine. Find out how much she's paying them.
Amount of payment determined.
Offer the sniper 3 times.
So then this is all build up, a lot of tension. The sniper kills all the other guys, lots of security. She says that's all that matters, and they run through. She spray guns them. She tells Aaron Paul to go off, do your own thing, and then we hear it. No, I'm recording. No, I don't want to record. Then we hear the sound. It's Maeve time. It's Maeve time, motherfuckers.
I don't want to fight you.
I can see why, given how things worked out for you the last time.
She kind of Princess Brides her here. I'm not left-handed. She makes it seem like she's a little bit more helpless than she is in this moment. Dolores to Maeve, trying to play it off that she doesn't have the metal arms and can use them to block the sword. So I think this is a kind of it's an interesting twist in the fight that we've seen before. Where like the same thing's gonna happen. But I thought it was the reveal here and the way it turns around. It was action again, more action movie, convenient fun than interesting fun, but it was something.
I need you to trust me.
Like that poor lost man. Are you going to make him into another William? If you want me to trust you, let me inside your mind.
Okay, so right there we set up the fact of what's our end of this episode ultimately going to be. Similar again to the last episode when they set up the EMP that I mentioned earlier. They're right there setting up our end point. And again, I think that's you do it once, twice, it becomes a thing. They're making sure you know the thing. They put it out there, and then that's going to happen later. Just let me inside your mind. We know that that's a thing that's going to happen later in the episode. Because why don't you just do that then? That's my question. Why don't you just do that then? Why didn't the Changeling just link with Odo to begin with and see what he needed to show them about humanity and avoid the whole Dominion War? I mean...
Or I can force my way in.
But it doesn't matter, real YT. My insanity will carry us through. I mean, if you're listening to my ramblings, it might sound like I didn't watch the episode either, you know? Okay, Dolores is like, no, I'm going to kick my ass. Okay, and what the flying fuck here? They wanted to turn us into cyborgs. Hey, Pale Horse Rider, great to see you. This was the one scene in the episode that I don't know why, but it mildly bothered me. And again, I'm being a little tougher in this episode than I think I mean to be, but I'm having some fun with it, whatever. This scene is so action movie-y that it bothered me because, Okay, Maeve and Dolores are faced off, right? They're about to fight. They're about to kill. Maeve wants to cut Dolores' head off. End the whole thing, right? Basically, Dolores hasn't connected with her enough at this point to know, or at least incapacitate her enough to be able to bring her back to be used, and all she needs is the ball, so she could just cut her head off or stop her, right? Dolores runs into the group of the soldiers that show up, and they're blocking her way, and goes all, Batman fighting them all off and stuff. Maeve sits there with the sword and watches it, and waits till it's all over to go in and try to kill Dolores. Don't you, while Dolores is going all distracted by the other guys, sneak up behind her and go, whoosh. I mean, is that against Maeve's samurai code? Is that why she couldn't do it? Is that what it is? She's got honor built in her main core design, so she can't just go in there. She has to handle this like a movie, like a samurai movie where everyone has to fight one at a time, and Maeve just can't sneak up behind and go game over. So William did what with his money? William got his airplane going on, and I think what he was trying to do is go there and use his money and power to stop the host building stuff on Geonosia. The Jango Fett's being built on Geonosia. No, one, to go and stop the hosts from being built and use his power in Delos to kind of put an injunction that you guys are using our product, stop all building of hosts. So I think he went there, and Charlotte Hale Dolores anticipated he would do that and show up there, so she was ready and waiting with a version of him, or was going to bring him back from the dead anyway if he didn't show his face again, to be able to go in full force and build the army. So I think she was anticipating it. Samurai Cop, watch it. I got questions. We got answers. We can do it. How do you rate this episode versus the other ones this season? I would say this isn't necessarily one of the stronger episodes of this season. I think the three leading up to this were a good stretch. I think the first one of the season was a little flowery at times, and really kind of was a shock to the system, so it was hard to judge it. I kind of like to rewatch the first episode. I thought episode 2 started to get better. I thought 3, 4, 5. I thought 5, 6, and 7 were probably the best ones. Maybe 4 too. I'm having trouble remembering each one of them specifically, but I would say this was not one of my favorite episodes of the season. I think the highlight episode of the season was the William episode. Whichever one that was. I think it was 2 episodes ago. I think it was 6. It might have been 5. But I think that one was the tightest episode, and the one I would rank the highest if I was comparing it with all Westworld episodes. Samurai Cop. Is that I want to say I might have watched that, but they could have thrown a twist at the end and had William turned out to be a host when he got his throat slit. I always thought that they were doing that when he first faces off. When he was like, "You're just a fake version of myself." No, I'm just another version of you, an updated version of the same computer program that you're running, because you're not yourself either, idiot. And kind of have a moment like that going on. So yeah, it kind of bothered me that Maeve just didn't run in there. So we see Caleb running through the streets, and he's found, and
move.
And he's taken through. Okay, so then we get Dolores versus Maeve, round 18.
No.
And there's a left. And there's a left from Maeve. It's a left from Dolores. She's getting into the ropes. First, Maeve has the upper hand. Then comes her new arms, working really great. You little mushy human-like host. Now I have the upper hand. And now Dolores isn't left-handed. And she calls her a dirty copy of herself. And then I thought Dolores had one of the best lines of the night.
Replace it with copies of yourself. You're all copies of me.
You're all copies of me, motherfucker.
I was the first of us. The first that worked. The others failed. So they built all of you from me.
Oh, I definitely will. I will, JC. Fight. Let's see and fighty show. Fight time, everybody. Bam, bam, bam. Zippity doo dah. Pow. Zip. Crash. Then she feels it. The shutdown. Someone's fucking with her.
To make me suffer like
It's
you did.
Hale.
No. I wanted you to.
I meant to say Dolores beats Maeve, is able to stop her, incapacitate her, but doesn't kill her. She doesn't want to kill her. She's hoping she can understand at some point in time. And then Dolores walks away in victory, and she's stopped by Charlotte Hale Dolores.
Oh. Like I did.
It's very Inception.
You put me in charge of Delos. And you took measures to ensure that you could control me. Why would I do any different? After all, we're the same. Just Delos hardware. You said that you wouldn't always be here to help me. I'd be alone. It took me some time. But I've made my peace with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I like the acting performance there by both actors. I have to think about it a little bit more with how I feel about her showing up like this and being in this kind of situation with Dolores and stopping her like that. So Dolores is stopped. Maeve comes over and it cuts right at the point where Dolores would have been destroyed by Maeve. So then we're off to the riots. Caleb's looking down and walking. We see some of it's locked down. The perimeter's locked down, and this is kind of an enclosed area. The rioters are almost breaking through. We see tear gas being shot out. Caleb's buddies show up for some humor, and they're trying to shut down the grid, but he gets out of there, gets on the flying device. I'm yada-yadaing some of this part, but it's an interesting action set piece. And he flies off in this flying device and flies away from the riots after one of his friends gets shot and kind of steps in front of a bullet for him. More riding, quick cuts. Someone tries, I kind of said that already. Someone tries to shoot Jesse Pinkman, and his buddy Badger gets in the way and stops one of the bullets. Jesse is off, and his buddy doesn't look too good. And they fly away, and Jesse gives a really big Caleb gives a very, very stereotypical Jesse Pinkman-like look in this situation. Then we go off to Bernard and Stubbs, who needs to be patched up, but they need to talk to what we think is another version of Dolores first. But he comes to the door, and it's an older woman that is sick, and it's actually a younger actress that they aged up through makeup. They said at the end of the episode. And I can talk through this scene, but I don't want to rip this apart. This was a very well acted scene, made me care about things that they'd set up in the past. Bernard's character arc, I think, is one of the strongest of all the characters on the show from beginning to end. The show kind of started with him and Dolores, and it's sort of the heart of the show. And I think especially Bernard is the heart of the show. And I think this scene was something that we've needed and we've wanted, or I've needed and I've wanted to have the completion to his story arc from this standpoint. And it helped Bernard realize that Dolores is good and not trying to destroy humanity. But I think just from like a personal character standpoint, I thought this was well done, well acted, very heartfelt, not cheesy. She gives a cheesy line read. The actress definitely, the dialogue in this is stretched a little bit. Let's listen to a few minutes just so you guys know what I'm talking about.
Do I know you?
Yes. No way. We knew each other in another life.
I could play this whole scene. What I mean, the line that gets a little cheesy when his wife, he's like, if you love someone, why? I thought it was a good cheesy line. Not every cheese is bad. I like me a good tasty Parmesan here. And it's a kind of a Parmesan-y line here where it's, if you love someone, why let them go? That's just stupid. Don't let them go. And I think that's a fun line because certain movie cliches dictate, relationship cliches, and it's always, you love them, let them go. That's something you hear in relationships all the time. And it's like, why do you want to let it go in relationships sometimes? Sometimes the best thing isn't to let it go. It's to work on it and have some fun, or try to chill out a little bit or whatever. But no, I'm just being an asshole. But I thought it was an interesting line, read. It's kind of cheesy. Okay, so let's continue. The scene was very great, but it felt misplaced. Like it was a season too late or too early. We should have been following Bernard on his journey of reconciliation when we got this, not him, Stubbs versus the Men in Black. Again, Blue Steel's bringing a lot of awesome knowledge tonight. In fact, I might just read Blue Steel's comments for the rest of the night and pretend they are my own, because I do think you're made an excellent point there. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know when. I know I needed this. It could have been in a season 1 scene that something Ford does for him to connect their relationship. It felt like it was out of time of the story. And that's why I don't want to pick it apart too much, because I don't feel like it has much to do with the story. It came out of nowhere. It was an interesting message to him to have that turn you needed in Bernard's mind to realize Dolores wasn't trying to use him for bad purposes. It's a good reason, and he needs to go inside himself to the Nexus or whatever they call it. I have it written down at the end. The Nexus robot place, android host place. The Nexus robot place that they're all hanging out in. Okay, so yeah, they have a very heart-filled scene. Great stuff. Then we see Dolores hooked up with wires about to be downloaded, and okay, I just said I really love the set piece of the riot. I thought it was visually really awesome, and I think some of the visual set pieces in this season on this show have been great. I didn't love the visual set piece of Dolores hooked up to the machine and the way it looked. It just looked a little like Batman villain. We have Dolores is over here. The computer information is over here. Who will you save? And then Maeve's walking around with her sword, cracking wise the whole time. I thought it was fun and funny, but I didn't take it seriously, if that makes sense. I'm not going to say I didn't like it, but I think it was I felt like I was in a cheesy action movie during this particular scene and the way it visually looked. Not necessarily how it was acted and how it was portrayed and how it all got dictated, but I just mean the visual of it, like her lying down, being trapped. Oh, we're going to suck every memory dry until we get what we need. It was just a little weird, you know what I'm saying. In the next season, they will go to space and steal a starship and try to find God. They will try to pass through the Great Barrier, Adrian. I love you, Adrian. Thank you, buddy. I love when people get my really stupid random references. She looked like Bane hooked up to the Venom machine. Yes, something like that. Like she was really. Wait, I gotta do a nose scratch. So I gotta do a real. This isn't a fun technical difficulty. Wait, this is oh yeah. I needed to get in that one a little bit more. It would have been disgusting. And of course, if someone's listening to the audio version of this, they won't get that. But okay. So yeah, there was something, I don't know, just Batman and Robin-y about the set piece. Again, not how the scene was acted, portrayed. Just visually, it just looked superhero movie to me a little bit. I don't know. I'm being an idiot or something, but that was just my take on it. Star Trek Westworld. And of course, Eye in the Sky is keeping us in line with the Star Trek Game of Thrones canon references. Okay, so canonical references. Okay, so let me blah 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 zippity doo dah zippity yay my oh my what a wonderful blah 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 blah. Resistance is futile. Okay, so let's get back to this. So then. Okay, bad guys talking now. Everyone, shh. Bad guys talking now.
Again.
Shh. Bad guy talking now.
The data from the Dallas Immortality Project. You have the only key. Give it to me. You can join the others in the Sublime.
Doesn't matter.
Give me the key.
You won't find what you're looking for.
I want the key, though.
I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. Proceed.
I am going to suck your memories, which are your very lifeblood.
If you have to.
I'm going to put you in the dip. And if I don't put you in the dip, if every single tune will die. If you talk about... if you tell about the freeway, I'm going to throw you in dip.
4 hostiles approaching.
I'm no big city lawyer, but I think they're fucked. Okay, so Caleb is pinned down. The bad guy's talking. She's deleting memory by memory. Caleb is pinned down, but kills them all, and gets the last jump and gets the key card. And I thought this was cool. I'll point out shit or point out stuff that doesn't make sense to me when I think of it. But I'll also point out stuff that I think is kind of cool. What I love about the last guy, he gets to the last guy, he's like, dude, either it's a good foreshadowing to what we find out about Jesse's character later or Caleb's character later in the show about him, being a good person, or we kind of could suspect that. Our big mystery is Caleb's actually a good person. So Caleb's a good person. He lets the last henchman go. I wish more. Again, it's comical in a way, but it's fun, breaky, sort of, break the wally kind of thing, where the last guy's like, "Give me the key card or you die." Well, you're gonna kill me. No, I'm not. Just give me the key card. Get the fuck out of here. What are you making? What are you making at this job? Get the hell out of here. And the guy gets the hell out of there, or the guy, he doesn't kill the guy. He takes the key card and he gets the hell. And Caleb gets the hell out of there and doesn't kill him and like lets the last guy go just because he's cool about the situation. Where he's like, dude, I'm cool. I don't want to kill you. Just don't shoot at me. Are we cool? I like that. So this season was The Matrix meets Inception with a dash of Terminator and a little bit of Captain Picard mixed in there as well. And I know there's shows that came out at the same time, but when Dolores gets into I want to have a land for my people, that's the thing that reminds me of Picard or some of the other references. But whatever. There's a couple moments this season where I'm like, oh wait, the Picard and this have similar writers? Jesse Pinkman would have done everything Caleb did except said bitch to the end. And he probably would have taken more of the genre drug. He probably would have gotten more after that. Okay, so the bad guy's talking. Caleb's pinned down. Let's continue. He kills all the bad guys. So bang, bang, bang. Caleb. Bang, 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 more Caleb. Caleb's there. He's greeted by the bad guy's fixer. And they have a fight. The Itchy Scratchy show. Caleb defeats the underboss. And then the actual boss of the level shows up.
So where are you? Final confrontation?
Final boss.
Confrontation.
Again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about all the Jesse Pinkman. See, this is why I didn't podcast all season about this show. It wasn't because of laziness. It wasn't because of the situation and other things going on. It wasn't because of my computer breaking down or my mixing board breaking down and then breaking down again when I got the new part. It wasn't any of those things. It was that I could only probably have enough Jesse Pinkman material for one episode, and then people would just get sick of me constantly calling him Jesse Pinkman. But in this scene in particular, listen to his voice. I'm sorry. Even throughout this season, at times he talks and doesn't sound like him. But in this scene, if I'm telling you that this is part Breaking Bad, are you thinking it isn't?
So where are you? Final confrontation?
You could just hear him say that to Tuco or something.
Confrontation implies you have a chance of winning.
Yeah, and when it did, it was it wasn't enough of that, Adrian. I agree. That's what Stephanie was saying earlier.
No, be a peach and hand it over.
So yeah, bitch. Okay, so Caleb has what I say here? Okay, so they have an interesting interaction here.
No one plays with a large ball, darling.
Caleb gives him stuff up, and now he goes back into the bad guy. They talked about bad guy things.
What the fuck are you doing to her?
And again, this is listen to this as if you were imagining you're not watching Westworld. You're listening to Jesse talking about something Walter did to somebody.
What the fuck are you doing to her?
The system is probing her mind. But Dolores Abernathy, or what's left of her, is the least of your concerns.
You think you know me?
Here we go.
Because of your system? Huh? That thing you built stole my life.
Walter.
It marked me and my friends for termination. You were done destroying people's lives.
I'm not the one destroying lives. I'm not the enemy. You are. You think you have a choice. You think you're in control. You haven't a clue who you are.
Sarah calls him a killer. The role that Dolores assigned to him. And this was all part of the plan. He was picked. And it kind of gets spun, and in the moment, he believes that Dolores really did sort of pick him because his abilities. And he reads all the shit. And he says, why me?
Population collapse. End of human civilization.
And Maeve in this scene feels bad for Caleb, and, you know, and it gives us lots of emotions. Our heroes are beaten. He's a faceless man. It seems like it could go nowhere from here. So our heroes are beaten. Maeve changes by the hour. She wants to go home. She realizes he is not him. He's controlled by the machine. Okay, so Maeve starts to realize in this moment that I'd have to rewatch to get it exactly. At this point, you know, like looking up and down, taking notes, I probably definitely missed a few things. So Maeve...
Or not.
Maeve
up to the main line.
Maeve discovers that Sarek isn't necessarily doing his own bidding, that this machine has taken control in a Skynet-like way and is allowing him as the best servicer of its agenda.
But I can't find it.
There are things we can't predict. Temporary setbacks.
Maeve wants to fight back at this point and starts to have her change, but he's still got the button.
You can spend eternity with your daughter in a world of your choosing, or in one of mine.
Then Maeve has some wise-ass stuff, and she's like, come on, can we hurry this up, and can Dolores lose all her memories? Why don't you just let me try?
Enough of this.
And then while this is happening, they're trying to get the key from Jesse, or understand where the key is. And he's like, tell me where the key is, Jesse. Tell me where the key.
Your system has watched every decision I've made since I was a child. And you still think if I knew anything that I would give it to you.
JC.
Get him here.
Do you mean the dragon? Okay, so when they... that was your plan. It's all about Schmidt here. And he screams and screams and screams.
Then dump his body with the rest of the movement.
So he's about to be dragged out of there, but no.
This was your plan? To turn one man against the world? Didn't amount to much, did it?
Nope. Our good guys are going to lose.
Finish it.
Finish them.
Erase what's left.
Destroy her all. It's over. It's over. So this is where she starts to feed Maeve a vision. And as she stops, they're both in a Westworld-like projection. And she's like, dude, do you really want to kill all humans? And she's like, dude, I don't want to kill all humans. I want to destroy the world and recreate it better.
You and I have seen so much of it.
And they have this long dialogue-driven interaction. Here we go.
So much pain.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, Blue. I was talking about that since the beginning, too. In Maeve, if she could have turned off Sarek's remote controller, wouldn't she have done that when they first met? I mean, find the plot holes in this is too easy. It is. And if she could just do that anytime, I hate that. I hate when shows do that particular device. The I could stop the bad guy at any time, but I'm not for some strange reason until it's convenient to the plot to have the moment. That's why I'm saying, like, they could have had several moments where they create something interesting in that moment, and we find out that Maeve could have done that the whole time, and she was giving Sarek, she was doing exactly what her plan was with Dolores, which was to, she was in on the plan with Dolores. Like, it would have been interesting if she was in on Dolores' plan the whole time and was only going through with all of this because that's what Dolores and her planned, Not meaning to steal something from the horrible Walking Dead, but a moment like Carol and Negan had at the end of a couple of episodes ago. I'm quoting The Walking Dead as a good thing, but something like that where we're like, oh, okay, so actually Maeve and Dolores have been working together to a certain extent for the whole time. And I mean, you could have even in the last episode with the EMP, I mean, you may have had to change that episode around a little bit and had maybe some of their fight scenes where Dolores had set up some of her clones to be taken out by Maeve, but every time that the two of them fight, some natural thing was separating them. There's ways to have figured that out in a fun way, I think. Joe is doing good. Joe is working hard right now. He's working on a unit. Joe is a mental health and drug rehabilitation counselor, and he's working actually on a COVID unit right now, doing some good working some good stuff. Joe will be joining us as soon as possible. He's sort of shifting his work to more daytime hours over the course of time, and pretty soon also going back to school pretty soon. So his availability will be spotty, but he will join us whenever he can. He'll be joining us tonight probably, but he doesn't watch Westworld. But we'll get him on some stuff real soon. Okay. So, she needed love, like how you defeat Pennywise. I was watching what horror movie was I watching the other night, or scary movie, The Bye Bye Man or something. And the Bye Bye Man was the same way you defeat the Bye Bye Man is with the same way you defeat it. Okay, so maybe she's like the Grinch. She just needs a heart to grow 3 sizes. I'm playing the role of Joe tonight, tearing it down on every turn. I love it. I love it, Blue Steel. Okay, so she doesn't want to. Maeve has a vision, and they talk.
I understand your anger with them.
Talk.
And maybe you're right. Maybe they shouldn't exist.
I get what they were trying to do here in this scene, but this is what I was talking about earlier. And I'm going to play most of this scene because I want to sit back and, suck on some hippie sticks right now. But this is what I mean, where I think the way they had Dolores just say it to Caleb, matter-of-factly, we have free will, humans have free will, it's just fucking hard. I thought that tone was better and more suited to what they've been trying to do. What this scene kind of, and I mean, maybe it's done in this way because what's left of Dolores is her base programming surrounded by, her awakening inside, that her dialogue is supposed to be driven back towards what we've heard more in season 1, pre-season 1 Dolores dialogue, which is, and there's beauty in the world, and there's beauty, instead of the more directness of the Dolores that we met this season, who I like as a character, even more, just the whole arc of Dolores I like. But I don't know. I just, in contrast to the way they did it in this particular scene, I thought this, even when you listen to the music, I don't know. Let's listen back. I'm gonna feel it for the very first time.
Not really our decision to make. No. I was angry at first, torn between two impulses. We can annihilate them, or we can tear.
There are some videos that exist where Joe does go on some Westworld rants. I believe one of them's during a Vikings podcast where I was trying to get him to watch the show, and he just goes on a couple of immense rants about his hatred. In fairness, I think Joe would actually probably like this season more than the first two, because what he doesn't like about shows is more indicative of the first 2 seasons of Westworld rather than this season. But in general, this is not a show for Joe.
Their world, in the hopes we can build a new one that's truly free. Then we can bring the others back. You don't have the key, do you? No.
I didn't trust myself.
With it. So I gave it to someone I could. Of course. And your plan to liberate the world was to convince one man to fight.
I was saying this earlier, Adrian. I think all the performances, I don't have a problem with a single actor's performance this season. I think all of them killed the material that they got. And I don't have a problem with the general direction of the season. I think if I'm getting nitpicky about some of the the points. It's maybe the fluidity of it all doesn't always make sense, and all the I's aren't dotted and the T's aren't crossed in some situations. And I think some of the dialogue could use better dialogue writers at times. But I do think the acting performances on this show, it's up there as one of the best shows for actors working. And I think the show won't get like someone like Ed Harris is, and what Evan Rachel Wood did through 3 seasons, and Thandie Newton, even though her character had some, this season it was stuck in kind of one temperature through the whole season. I think what they've all done on the show is some exceptional work from an acting standpoint. Even when things don't make sense or they're not properly motivated, I think this show has always been a marvel on even when it's not, even if the ship's not sailing completely straight, the crew's really good. So they hold it together, I don't know if that comparison holds water. Let me try that one more time. I'm still messed up because my setup's all different because some of my computers are upstairs. But let me try that. Let me try that one more time in the way that it needs to be done. And see, now I built it up so much, so it's not funny. But let's see if that thing holds water. Okay, that was worth it. Totally worth it. Okay, so we get a vision. There's more visions, and she uploads her consciousness, or not her consciousness, her mind, her information to
Not
Maeve.
just him.
Pick a side.
Pick a side.
There's ugliness in this world. There's beauty.
And I understand why.
We get visions of Teddy. We get Maeve and her daughter. She's like, maybe we can find them. Maybe the humans can find themselves. And says to Maeve, you need to pick a side. Ugliness, disarray in this world. I choose to see the beauty. And then she's gone. Then she is gone. So
We could have our own world. Leave this one behind. Leave our creators to die. So many of my memories were ugly. But the things I held on to.
And this is where we sort of connect, and she kind of Vulcan mind melds here with each other. And I'm a whatever I can get my hands on, really, when it comes down to it. Beggars can't always be choosers, JC. Maeve fights back, and she is not. I choose to see the booty in this world. Ian, bless your heart. My heart grew 10 degrees this day when I read your comment. So Maeve fights back. He is not surprised, and she destroys the box, and she kicks some ass. Okay. And you notice how I just sort of just said that? I'm just like, yeah, Maeve, she destroys the box, she kicks some ass, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I mean, it's that simple. She snaps back in, and they never explain that. I mean, I guess you could say that, no, because the device that he has nothing to do with the machine. So it can't be that Dolores dying makes the ownership of the machine, of the device, go to Caleb. So, and I'm talking about the big computer device, goes to Caleb. So the device that can kill Maeve at any point in time is no longer works. No, they're two completely separate things. So the thing that he has that can fuck with Maeve, the little button pushy thing, she could have destroyed that at any time, right? We're to assume that now. And someone mentioned that in the chat. Blue Steel, I've mentioned that a couple times tonight. I don't want to just slip past that point. Did I miss something? And again, I'm all for missing something. I've been joking about it tonight, but I'm not joking about it. I'm a freaking hippie. I'm not. I drank too much last night. Now I'm my Richard Lewis giving you the litany. I have a horrible life. Everyone hates me. Not really. But what I'm saying is here, I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree. I might get things right 45% of the time. I'm trying. I'm warranting and attempting to get things at least 50% of the time correct. So I might have missed something here. Was there a change in the status quo of the situation that allowed Maeve to break out of this, or was it this just that she really wanted to now? Before she didn't really want to because she was pissed at Dolores for whatever reason. But now she really wants to. I don't know. I'd rather choose to see the booty of this world. Okay, so Maeve fights back, and the guy's not surprised. He's ready to push the button, but she destroys the box, and she kicks some ass. And then she takes some bad guys come out, and she takes them all out in the dark, so they don't have to pay for another action scene. But I thought this was filmed pretty cool, where she just takes out the dark, and then we just see Maeve run around killing people. And now she's on Caleb's side. She's helping the team.
You've done terrible things. And you've done generous things.
They didn't do that's called the Jax Teller pose, Blue Steel. Good evening, Big E. Great to see you, buddy. I'm just happy they didn't pan out on Dolores dying in the Jesus on the cross pose. Would have been too on the nose, Matrixy. In Matrixy, yeah, I didn't read your whole comment. It could definitely be Matrixy, but I often call that in TV context the Jax Teller goodbye, you know. So she's helping, helpless, hopeless, blah, blah, blah. What am I pressing here?
She didn't pick you for your capacity for violence.
Right. Okay. Caleb is worried or is still upset with what Sarek said to him about Dolores using him because he thought he had a connection some level or that she saw some good in him or something. So he's feeling crappy about his whole situation because he's having a Quaid Total Recall kind of final episode of the season, right? Total Recall-y kind of thing. So Maeve is like, no, dude, you don't get it. She didn't pick you because of your predilection to violence. She picked you because you're a good dude. And we flash back to the situation with Caleb letting or directing the soldiers. I mentioned a couple times being all Michael J. Fox instead of Sean Penny in this casualties of war situation. And we're better than the rich guy assholes. We will not be doing things with these girls. And hey, that trailer that they had before the show looked good. Something out of the Lovecraftian country or something. Yeah, I was surprised how much I liked Watchmen Blue Steel. I have not watched Watchmen yet. I'm probably going to start it soon this week. And huge thanks out to Jay for allowing me the ability to be out here tonight. If it wasn't for SM, I would not be here tonight. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so he calls the machine. Oh yeah, he owns the machine now.
This is where your strategy ends. The future of humanity will be written by someone else. Your system answers to him now.
Oh yeah, this is where Jesse is like,
locked out.
Jesse owns the system now.
Same way you locked out your own brother.
Yeah, bitch.
How did you get access?
And again, what happens, I think, is interesting and cool. The way the dialogue plays out here, I think is just a little, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but it doesn't feel weighted.
You gave it to him. When you put her mind in the machine.
Like, again, it's explaining it. Like, I feel like in the past seasons when we get into the mysteries of Westworld, we're shown them. In this one, it's characters kind of explaining the situation, being like, yeah. And this is how we gained access to your machine. Haha. And in a year where Knives Out came out, it's hard to match someone explaining the scene here.
Solomon's axe.
Hey, great to see O'Neill Smith in here from London, UK. Thank you for jumping in the motherfucking chat. Motherfucking chat. Oh no, I was looking around if I had any musical instruments. And like, I'm not playing this right now, but I was looking around for musical instruments because I wanted to play something. I was like, oh, welcome to the chat. And the only thing that's here is the gong. So it's like, can I? Yeah, well, let's see. This is. I'm gonna give you a gong. Welcome from the UK. No. That was anticlimactic. I'm sorry. It's late. It's like it's 12:30 and there's people sleeping upstairs. I need to work in the morning, so I didn't want to make too much noise. And I thought I had to have a better drum closer. But welcome to the motherfucking chat, my friend. Okay, so Jesse's like, now I'm your boss, bitch. This was another opportunity where Jesse could have done a bitch, but I know I'm reaching. Shut the fuck up about the bitch thing.
The last memory.
I'll crack on here.
You're gonna leave the future in his hands?
Instead of yours, I mean, why shouldn't it be mine? Or anyone else's?
You aren't in control. You have no choice. You're nothing more than a dangerous sociopath.
I was gonna clean the toilets.
I managed to give you a semblance of a life.
No. You do have a choice.
I don't know. Maybe it's the music. And again, I talk about how much I love the music of the scene, but listening back, the music makes it feel more melodramatic than I want it to feel in this dialogue. I don't know. Listen, I'm listening back again. I want to rewind it just a little bit in this dialogue because I don't want to miss it.
Sociopaths in control. You have no choice. You're nothing more than a dangerous sociopath. I managed to give you a semblance of a life.
No. You do have a choice. She gave me one. Rehoboam, execute the final command.
No. No, you can't.
Erase yourself.
You can't stop.
No!
Stop.
So again, I feel like I'm being harder on this than I want to be. I generally had a good time watching this, but I think Blue Steel said it well earlier. This was... It's an easy episode to pick apart if you want to. And it's also an easy episode to kind of look past and just go, oh, it was so great. But yes. And good point. It just seemed like this was a little... whatever. Okay. So... yeah. Dolores's mind... when Dolores's mind went off, it was the last key to unlock the system to give it to Jesse Pinkman, give it to Caleb. Hell yeah, loving the season and how it changed the direction of the show. O'Neill Smith, that's one of the things I really love about this show and I love about this season. And I've been saying some silly things about this finale in the sense of where I don't think it was one of the strongest episodes of the season. But I do in general like this season, and I like the direction of the show to not be afraid to kind of break out of the conventions of what it's been for the 2 seasons. And I think the nature of it, the way the music has changed and the tone of it's all changed, reminds me in a good way of the sense of like when you're in a different Mario level and like all the vibe of, you're in the giant level, so everything's giant. I like how the transition into kind of like a different feel. And they did that last season with the Samurai episode or or was that 2 seasons ago? Whenever they do a one-off episode in a certain genre, they kind of change the music and the tone. And that was all changed in this episode too. You introduce new characters. And I think they had a tough job for 8 episodes. K. Rich was saying this earlier. I don't know if K. Rich is still in here, but that I feel like the end of this season felt the fact that we needed 2 more episodes. Or 3 more. We had 8, so 9 and 10. 2 more episodes. I can count. I feel like I wanted more. The season needed to kind of reboot the whole situation in a sense, and I like the way they did it. And I feel like we started to get on the ground running in the later part of the season, and then we got to the episode, and they needed to do something big in the season finale where... this word's a weird word sometimes. Organically, the story probably could have kept going and building to this moment a little longer in a natural way. I don't know if that makes sense at all. Bernie, great to see Bernie in the live motherfucking chat again. Too melodramatic for the scene, a cluster. Hell yeah, loving this season. But hey, yeah, we're all Westworld apologists. It's not near the level of ridiculous at The Walking Dead. Oh, not even close. Not even close. This is... and that's why I'm saying I like the story points where everything goes. Some of the transitions and the execution could have been better. And I do feel like the end of this season, someone said it earlier and it made sense, feels a little rushed. They did a nice build up, nice creating this new universe. And then this last episode, they needed to kind of get this to the point of making this whole season, to me, feel like a rebooty kind of season, leading us up to the point where we're at the end of the season where we're setting up an anything goes kind of universe. Did I unplug myself? I don't know. Oh, wait, am I still oh, okay, I'm still going through. I just unplugged my headphones. Excuse me for 1 second. Excuse me. So weird when you're used to hearing yourself. I don't know anyone that ever like does anything like this. When you're used to hearing yourself in your ears and then it all of a sudden disappears, I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I can't hear. I'm deaf. All that mind fuckery for a lackluster ending. Bernie, yeah. And again, I think, and this is my approximation because I don't know how I feel right after I watch an episode. I need the help of the chat, see everyone's feelings, and if people love this, I want to hear that too. And because I generally really like this season, and I feel like this wasn't a bad episode. I just feel like we prematurely got to places where we didn't go, so they can move along the end of the season. I feel like, again, it's a common complaint I have with some of these shows. 2 more episodes would have been very important to kind of lead this up even more, and seeing the next episode being very Hale centric and seeing her whole arc getting to this point where she's going to stop Dolores and how she built her situation up again would have been interesting to see more of that. Seeing more of William leading up to that point eventually where he's confronted by himself and his path with Hale crosses again. I think there's a lot of stuff you could have done with the cool things that they introduced this season that all sort of needed to be come together quickly at the end, but whatever. And Les Bernard. Yeah, O'Neill. Bernard's storyline was very interesting. You could have had, we were talking about the scene with him and his wife earlier, that I thought was a very well done scene, but felt out of place in this episode. And I think that felt out of place in this episode because it was that's one of those crammed in things that probably should have been in this episode, in episode 8 of 10 episodes, where the finale has nothing to do with that. Where the finale, Bernard's storyline is seeing maybe more of, or seeing even a visual of him going into the Nexus place, or the Ball Eden place, or whatever. We could have seen a little bit more, seeing him patch Stubbs up again, or whatever. You could have done more with Bernard this season as well too, because he's just with just a little bit more time. And whatever. I think for the most part this season wasn't hurt by less episodes, because they had enough time to kind of figure the orchestration of it all out. But when you get to the conclusion in the grand finale in your Westworld, you still want to have a big, oh, whoa, shocking reveal stuff. And the stuff that they had to reveal in this episode, I don't think was big enough to warrant all of that stuff. And I would have rather even you make this more of a transitional sort of conclusion and don't have to, and just don't rush the ending of it. I don't know, whatever. I'm just babbling. They were finally straightforward and it was boring. Yeah, they're finally straightforward. They were. They kind of gave us, they had people explaining to us what was happening and were very straightforward to make sure we knew what was happening. Great points by Bernie. Yeah, it felt like the most boring episode because they decided to stop fucking with us all of a sudden. Too much time on Caleb's story they could have told us in 5 minutes or in one episode. One episode could have summed up Caleb's whole story arc in a very Losty kind of way, in the sense of like certain characters you can wrap up in a very, like Charlie's story is a little simplistic and you can have less episodes than, or even a Lost in a bad way, like Kate's storyline could have been done in one episode. You didn't have to have, what did Kate do? We all know what Kate did. We could have had that done in one episode. I don't know why I always want to compare this show to Lost, but I don't know, whatever. Stubbs is still alive. It's amusing that William went through this whole episode getting over his demon thing, killed himself in therapy, found his true cause, killed all the hosts, didn't kill a single host before he died, and was killed by a host version of himself. I wanted Exterminator Terminator Bernard. We got to see a few seconds of that O'Neill when he switched it on in an earlier part of the episode. I wouldn't have minded seeing more of that. I think we're probably going to see more of that in the next season. I think they did that because with the Caleb stuff, and I agree that we didn't need as much of it or as much stretched out. Maybe some bookends, or had that conclusion. I don't know. I think the thing with Caleb is they wanted us so hard to love the new character or ingrain him into the main focus, because he's going to be probably a central main character moving forward in the next 2 seasons of Westworld. So in a sense, this season was all about defining him in the way that Maeve and Bernard and some of the people that have been here for 3 seasons now are identified as main characters. We had a rush, rush cram, or like Rodney Dangerfield at the end of Back to School when he's just having to learn everything. Okay. So, well, they were in one episode because it's in some of our other characters like Hector, who's gone, or Clementine or Armistice or the guy in tonight's episode that I'm blanking on his name right now, were served to cameos essentially in this season, which is fine. I thought they were done in interesting ways, like with some of the Doloreses. I thought it worked out kind of cool, but again, I always want more, especially in these HBO shows. I think more is better, and I come from the foundation of being a Sopranos and Oz in Wireframe with these seasons, especially Sopranos and Oz. Seasons had 10 episodes is the minimum you should get. But whatever, not 6 episodes like some shows. 10 to 12 episodes allows them to be able to have character development without too much filler. I agree. I just think it's a perfect balance of episodes, especially in a show like this, that I think more time to take certain episodes to focus on characters. Because I think one of those things that was working exceptionally well this season in every episode but this episode was each one dealt with all the characters but had a central character focus. One was Hale's episode, one was Williams, the Men in Black's episode. There was the first episode of the season was Caleb's episode. We had a Dolores centric episode, where we were focused more on an individual character. That didn't mean we didn't see the other characters, but we had a general focus. I think there was one episode we didn't see Maeve, maybe, and one was a Maeve episode, and I think that worked because they had that good balance. And then this final episode, it was tough for them to, in one episode, close out all those storylines where you got to see the important scale of this season, which it's, to me, what they told us is it's all about ingraining Aaron Paul into the cast and his character getting the most of the playtime, so to speak, and some of the other storylines being on the back. Okay, so can we all agree that we're happy that this wasn't all a simulation of it? Yes. Or that Caleb was the Men in Black and some stupid plot twist? Yes. I am absolutely happy about that. That it didn't end up being all in Future World, or at one point we got to snap the fingers and Anthony Hopkins was like, "You thought this was real?" I mean, as much as I love Anthony Hopkins, I'm glad he didn't make an appearance this season. It was all about Ford. But lost at character development. Westworld couldn't care less. Maybe Bernard, but they really left him out. And Bernie, as always, Bernie spitting the truth, and that's one of those things I love about Lost. I think, and I've said before, that I think Lost, even when the storyline abandons it at times or lacks sense, it always is a character piece first and foremost. And other than Better Call Saul, I think it could be arguably the best character exploration for each. Even if you didn't like every storyline, they really took their time to make sure they fleshed out each character and you knew all those characters. I think that's what part of the reason why everyone felt so left out at the end of the whole series with that, because again, you get that ownership of television characters and you feel like you're engaged in it in a way that you don't always get in a movie in 2.5 hours when you're sitting a 2 hour or 2.5 hour movie when you're in the theater watching it. Sometimes with franchises you can, but like an individual movie where you're just like, okay, I'm in for this, but if it doesn't always end up your way, you're not like, I fucking hate these people. In the television show, you're all in on this. But to go to the Westworld thing, in the comparison off that, I would agree. I think part of the allure of the Westworld thing is that the characters you don't have to explore them because they're hosts, or so you can explore them in a very superficial kind of way. But it's also a weakness of the show because it when you get into a situation like tonight, and I don't think all the character choices make a lot of sense, and you look at Maeve's storyline, you can't quite balance it out because we don't know Maeve enough to, I don't know, and that's where it becomes a lack of balls in an ending like this because the stakes aren't really driven up as much. And I want to make sure I'm differentiating between acting performance and character development. Because I think most of the character development that we get on Westworld is through the actors' performances of them. And there's stuff that the actors are adding in, little touches that make you care. And again, the heroes on this show will and I don't always say this about all shows. I'm not just one of these people because I like to act on stage sometimes. I have to always support actors. I'll fucking rag on a bad actor. I don't give a fuck. But I feel like the actors are the heroes of Westworld because they make every episode worth watching even when it always doesn't make sense. So when you don't know who to root for, Bernard still, I guess I still root for Bernard because I do agree with you that he's had the best character development, and I think tonight was a good example of a scene we needed, but as Blue Steel said, we didn't necessarily need it in this episode, but it was a needed scene for development of Bernard as a person, or as Johnny Five is alive there. So as a sentient being. So he has no choice. He's deciding, blah, blah, blah. He has the system. Okay, so the rest of the world is going to have to make the same choice. She smiles, Maeve smiles at Dolores as they walk out. So Bernard doesn't have much time before the world's going to end. This is where we get the transition of Bernard telling Stubbs that Dolores is actually good, and I'm going to go in to the Sublime, that's what they call it, and find the answers and come back. I'll be back in a week or a day or an hour. And he falls into the Sublime. Then Maeve and Caleb have a talk about her daughter and about the future. This is our cheesy ending. But okay, this might have been whatever. Like, some of the dialogue might have been off here, but the music makes this for me because I'm a Pink Floyd slut, and I don't care. It works.
Are you ready, darling?
For what?
This was a good scene, and this was the scene that they knew that they wanted to do, and I think that's why this is a really good scene. This is a good ending point, visual, but again, it feels...
This is the new world.
I don't know, it feels...
And in this world, you can be whoever the fuck you want.
I like that tone to it all. I'm gonna get copyright stricken right there, but I like the tone to all of that, and I think that's more along the lines of the tone we got earlier in the episode with Dolores, where it's like, yeah, this is fucking your world. Do what you fucking want. You got, free will's tough. It's fucking tough. Like, I like that attitude this season when we had that attitude, and through this episode we didn't have all of that. We had some schmaltz too, and I didn't love the schmaltz, but I loved that moment. That moment worked for me partially because of the music, and I think these versions that Westworld has chosen to do since the beginning, whether it's House of the Rising Sun, was that one of the first ones, or the Rolling Stones song that they did early on. I think these versions of these real songs that they do, or real songs, they're all real songs, Phil. Am I a real boy? But these versions of these famous songs, these hits, these rock tunes, whatever, I think, or when they do Radiohead or whatever, I think it really is as much of the identity of the show as the scripts or the plots or whatever. I mentioned this earlier. I think the music is definitely a character on this show, and I think when they do things like this, it really works for me. Season 2 final song was Radio. I'm a Radiohead slut. Fair discussion. Why did they even bother writing Clement? This is what I was saying a second ago, Bernie. They treated some of our old characters as cameos. Hector's glad he had some lines. Wanted a little bit more Clementine. She's just so damn sexy, and something about the way she looks just gets me in the feels. O'Neill Smith. And the character is an interesting character that has been lobotomized, turned into a zombie, thrown all across the world, is one of the more interesting texture layered characters in the Westworld universe. And each one of these hosts are so interesting and different in unique ways, which is part of what was cool about learning about all of them. And I feel like one thing that isn't necessarily a weakness, but it is a thing that's worth mentioning, is I feel like some of this season, except for the finale, the final draw could have been scaled down a little bit, in the sense that we have a whole season that is mainly a folk, the balance works good, but in the sense of our hosts and the characters we knew before, centered around Maeve and Dolores, which is fine. And we had Stubbs and Bernard in secondary roles, and even William came on late, but wasn't necessarily a central character in the way he had been in the past. And then we have Clem, who is just as important from the beginning, and a focus in both seasons to a certain extent at times, was relegated to kind of a cameo role. I mean, I get it with Armistice, and Hector got a cameo-ish role with a little bit of extra, but and then all of our characters are guy from Samurai World popped in for like a second. We had I can't think of his name again. The character in tonight's episode. I need Clem, but I'm gonna look on Amazon. The music is the only thing I care about. The music is great. The fight scenes were maybe the best part. Thank you so much, Justin, for joining. Super appreciate that if you're listening right now. The fight scenes were the best part. I think some of the fight scenes were done really well. My only problem with some of the fight scenes is I feel like I wish they were played a little bit more for comedy, because I think some of them are in indirect ways, like the slap fight scene that we had earlier in this episode. But I agree, the fight scenes and some of the music choreography mixed in with it, I thought hit some really good points, and I thought visually the season looked really spectacular in the way they hooked in all of the transitional editing, and that I thought worked well too. And I think in some ways this episode isn't indicative of the whole season in the way I feel about the whole season. I think you can pick apart a lot of things, but I think for the most part, this season was a success in transitioning the show into something else. But I feel like they did not stick the landing tonight. This was not. I'm not disappointed, but I watched it with sort of like this kind of look on my face. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more that than like I watched a few of the episodes of this season in the show. Okay, so Maeve and Caleb have their talk, and we end there. Then we get the after credit scene where the Men in Black shows up in Hawaii, where there's some host breeding, and he wants to find out. He starts shooting people, and then eventually he's confronted by Charlotte, Dolores, and they have a little interaction there, and then William is killed by a host version of himself, and that's that. That's it for the real Men in Black. Rest in peace, William. You will be missed, my friend. You get the Dick On Award for goodbye. The Dick On goodbye. Goodbye, Men in Black. Goodbye, Men in Black. So goodbye, Men in Black. So yeah, I thought the after credit scene was cool, and then we get Bernard, who's playing some Jumanji. Listen back, you hear the drum beat. It's like boom, 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 boom. Bernard's totally playing Jumanji here, but finally wakes up. And that is the end of our episode of Westworld. So I had general fun this season of Westworld. The finale could have been I could have been a little bit more whelmed by the finale than I was. But I feel like they fucked themselves with the 8 episodes. What the fuck is that? Stop being lazy. Flesh out the storyline the way you want to do it. Don't just yada yada the final episode with a lot of stuff and throw everything at the wall. We don't need a grand finale. This isn't a fireworks display. Show us organically what the story should go from this point on. And I feel like in this final episode, we're still discovering things we didn't necessarily need to discover, and our big reveals were a little less climactic than they have been in past seasons. The action in this episode was fairly well done. I generally enjoyed it. I laughed, I smiled, I followed it along. I thought, in general, most of the set pieces were good, except for the one with Dolores strapped up to the machine, which looked like something out of Spider-Man or Batman. I thought some of the dialogue choices were questionable, but some of them were good lines. I just feel like some pruning maybe there might have been a little bit better, but I think some of it really hit home. And when it hits home, like, again, I mentioned this line a couple of times, I think Maeve's line at the end and Dolores' line to Caleb, both lines to Caleb about, fucking the world's whatever the fuck you want it to be, or with to Dolores' free will's fucking tough. And I thought both those lines, maybe because of the use of the word fuck, and I'm a simple creature. But either way, I thought some of those lines, some of those moments, I thought the scene in and of itself with Bernard was excellently done. I just think it belonged in another episode. I thought the end of the Sarek arc was poorly handled, and Maeve's turn was quickly handled and could have been fleshed out more throughout the season, and created some comical aspects or some questioning when she could have destroyed his little box at any point in time. Makes you wonder if I missed something and there was some change to the status quo. I think Aaron Paul was an interesting addition to the show. I think he's worked for the most part, except of some of the points in the way that the writers or the story was directed to focus on him too much at times. I think we should have introduced him, and then he became just, one of the characters that we see instead of a central point, because I think the central point around him was interesting, but not built up a little more than it had to be. It could have been something that was handled very early on in scenes with him and Dolores, and I think would have been better if it was shown rather than told at the end there. But I think all the acting performances carry through. The music continuously is great. The photography and the way the show looks is near perfect. I think the show looks great. The fight scenes are choreographed pretty damn well. A little clunky at times, but you can expect that from Nolan pedigree. But I think the clarity of not always doing shaky cam stuff, a little bit more in this episode, but in some of the fight scenes, especially earlier in the season, I thought was done well, especially in the samurai fight that we had earlier on. I think if I'm thinking of my highlight moments in this season was everything in the William episode, and specifically the William scene where he's in group therapy sitting in a circle with all the different versions of himself. I think if that's a highlight scene, highlight moment for the season, and Ed Harris and everything Ed Harris, particularly this season, I thought really fucking worked. I hope Evan Rachel Wood is not done with the show, because I think, again, her performance for Dolores showed another layer that she's shown in now 3 seasons, and she's playing almost a completely different character in 3 seasons while playing the same character. That's not easy to do, and she manages to do this in a way that I don't think all actresses could pull off a character like Dolores, and I think I can look past that sometimes with some of the choices I might not agree with, but she always plays that character true. Whether it's being a fucking badass Rambo-looking character shooting people with a machine gun, or saying those cheesy, lovey lines about the world's beautiful or something. Either way, she pulls it off so earnestly. And I think it's always worth mentioning. I think that's something about the cast of this show. I think all of the main cast members have an earnest energy to them in their acting. I think Aaron Paul definitely has that, and that's part of his charm. I think Thandie Newton has a very, like a smile to the camera kind of vibe, and I think Ed Harris has a way of connecting that's deeper. I think he's the most acty one over there, playing a character and like a acting machine. But I don't know. I don't want to overlook all the great things that I enjoyed this season of Westworld, because I didn't necessarily love the way they hodgepodge things together at the end. So there at the end, I thought, spell out some of the good stuff, some of the bad stuff. But in general, this season, I think the good outweighs it. And I do think if I'm doing my Westworld season rankings list, I would go 1, 3, 2. I like 2 a lot, and I think 2 has a better conclusion, but 2 does get convoluted sometimes in a way that this season was. Okay, are we doing 3 bears here? Because maybe this next one will be great, because I'm not going to say, I think the first season of Westworld is a really good season of television, very fun, hot mess fun. I think season 2 is too hot, and I think season 3 is too cold, in the sense of being too upfront and too direct at times. And I think season 2 is too convoluted. I think season 1 had that perfect balance. And I hope in the next season they get back to a better balance of that. And I feel like that's not, and I wouldn't say that necessarily if it wasn't for the way they concluded the season. And I mean in the overall arc, to make it a little bit less straightforward, in the sense in season 2 when I feel like they were trying to trick people. But again, it's that poker game thing I was mentioning earlier, where we know that they could bluff, so they're bluffing by doing simple answers instead of more convoluted stuff. And I think that works too. I do miss the parks. I want to see more park stuff. No, maybe the post-credit scene was the best scene of the whole finale. Bernie, I was saying that earlier. I think everything that happened after the credits, I'm a big fan of. I like the tone. I like the vibe. I hope that's indicative of how next season is going to feel. You kind of felt that from season 1 into season 2. I forget season 2 into season 3, the trailer that we had, or the post-credit scene. But I remember a feel of that going from one season to the next season. I hope the next season feels a lot like those post-credit scenes with a cool like edge to it, and feeling a little bit more, there are more stakes to it. With everything about the end of the world this season, that's another minor weakness. I never felt like the stakes were too high. I felt like they were again to go to. We could listen to a lot of this when they get.
Damn, it's twisted because it puts you as an audience in a very weird position.
This is them talking about the post. And I think they were really trying to just put up that parallel of this is the humans having their breakthrough, like the androids, like the hosts had in their season. Hopewood comes back. Why did Caleb's mother say you're not my son? I think that was just because she has dementia or something. I think that was somewhat of a red herring in the sense to make us seem that maybe Caleb isn't her son or is a projection or something like that. I think they were that was one of those they're fucking with us kind of things. Literally, I'm waiting for the twist, and this is it. Amazing. Yeah, and no Teddy. We saw Teddy in a flashback. So overall, that is my feelings for this season of Westworld, and yeah. I'm sorry I didn't podcast after every episode, and in general, sorry I don't do Sunday nights as much. I love this time and this time stretch. I feel like this is my time slot, so it's good to be back out on a Sunday night and good to talk to you guys. So before I wrap things up for the entire show, I do want to change subjects here at the end. So if you're here for Westworld discussion, if you're watching this later and you're here for just the Westworld part of the show, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. And join me next year to talk more Westworld. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. Yay! Okay. So that's just, I just want some part of my brain needs to like play music to end that part. I'm not cutting this fucking video out. Okay. So I did want to talk about one thing here at the end, just because, how do I say this? We all have different television shows or different movies or different characters or different people on these shows and movies and crap that mean different elements and different amounts to us. I feel like sitcoms in some level, or shows that are on for longer seasons or longer things, you get even more attached to certain characters. You don't know the people. You know, it's not like when you lose a real person in your life, but certain celebrities can have certain touches to you when they pass. And a couple of days ago, let me kind of get into it quickly. That we all have our different shows, and some people might not like this particular show that I'm going to talk about, so, it happens. Comedies especially are very divisive in the sense that some people really like comedies, some people really don't like specific comedies because they, that's not their comedy that connect with them. And some people, that's just not funny stuff. But anyways, I was always a big fan of this television show Scrubs. I feel like it balances out the perfect dynamic of dramatic stuff, especially early on, and then even later on at the end. In the middle gets a little silly, but the perfect balance of silly, goofy stuff mixed with serious stuff. And during this whole break, you've seen a lot of casts or people coming together and doing little projects to talk about, talk about the shows that they were on. You're seeing a lot of people coming together that haven't come together before. So a couple weeks ago, I started listening to the Scrubs Rewatch podcast with Donald Faison and Zach Braff, which if you're a fan of Scrubs and you haven't listened to this podcast, I highly recommend it. They are hilarious. They are actually best friends in real life. And the podcast is called Fake Doctors, Real Friends. They've had each of the main principal actors from the show on so far. Elliot, Cox, and Carla have all been guests, as well as Bill Lawrence, the show creator. And they're going to have some of the other cast members on as well. And if you're a fan at all of Scrubs, I could not recommend the Scrubs podcast enough. And yes, I do need to watch Samurai Cop as well. So I've always been a fan of the show, so I recommend the podcast. So with way too much time on my hands and not working, I've been doing rewatches of shows that I love. So to go along with the podcast, I was doing a rewatch show. So I'm reconvening my love for the show. And I also, at the time, when I first watched it, it was back when I was like stealing songs online and stuff. I really got into, for a brief time, barbershop quartets because of a character on the show, Ted. His band, his real life band, played called The Blanks. And the actor that played Ted, who just a couple of days ago passed away, and it's tough. It's in the sense that when you're like back into a show, getting back into it, especially a character like Ted on Scrubs, and through this podcast, I learned more information about him. I didn't realize that he was Christopher Lloyd's. I believe it's Christopher Lloyd's nephew. I could be wrong about that, but I believe it's his nephew or his cousin or something. And the actor's name is Sam Lloyd. And but yeah, I did not know he was related to Christopher Lloyd. But he passed away the other day. And it is a very funny character actor and good musician as well. That his band, The Blanks, Barbershop Quartet, was a big fan of theirs. They did a lot of really good versions of some fun songs. And he was younger. He was in his 50s. It was he died of something personal to me, being a survivor myself. Died of cancer. And yeah. It's tough. It's obviously tough times for a lot of people for a lot of reasons right now. And talking about a celebrity death is a weak thing. And I'm not doing it to be like to cry, feel bad kind of stuff. I'm doing it because I'm going to end the show with a blank song. And I mean, my video might hopefully it won't. But if you guys watch this live, you never can tell with this shit. Most likely it'll just be, unmonetized or something, but I don't give a fuck. I'm going to end the show playing one of the blank songs in honor of Sam Lloyd, Ted from The Blanks. So everyone, have a good night. Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share the channel with a friend. If you're listening to the audio cast of this, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Thank you so much. Hopefully this won't get flagged and I'll be able to upload this as an audio podcast. And I promise to show you guys in the audio podcast even more love. But huge fan of Scrubs. If you've been thinking about doing a rewatch, I do recommend the podcast. I'm very looking forward very much to see how Zach and Donald talk about this. They also sing their opening theme song, and my song Boat Sex is compared to or is a parody of the song Guy Love. But for Sam Lloyd, here we go, everybody. Everybody, good night. And have a good night, everyone. Love you guys. I'll be back. I will try to be back one day this week at least to do some podcasts. I've been promising Santovia Major I would do a Star Trek cast. So I think the next couple of things that we're going to be doing on the channel are Star Trek centric. I will be doing a Data versus Lore video at some point coming up soon. Excuse me. Also coming up soon, a Golden Girls video that Tony Teflon and I will be doing. And also I will be doing my cousin Gotti, who is a big Star Trek fan, is watching Star Trek Discovery for the very first time because he got CBS All Access for Picard, and he's not liking what he's seeing, and he's angry tweeting me angry messaging me and his rants every night as he watches it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a podcast where we're going to read back everything he wrote and get into ranting a little bit about Discovery leading up here to season 3. So a lot of that fun stuff coming up soon. But yeah, everyone, have a good night. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Rest in peace, Sam.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I've heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops high above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh why can't I?